Gonna do a rare live breakdown. Rare live breakdown video, guys. Just checking that we're all good to go here. Get rid of Photoshop. We don't need that. We'll be good to go shortly. So, let's see if this is working. So my website's working. Twitch, are you working? Twitch is working, very cool. What about YouTube? Yo guys, if you're on YouTube, could you let me know, guys, if it's working on YouTube, just so I can make sure the audio and everything is good, the audio and the picture, and then we're gonna get into these fights, man. Hope you're all doing good, boys. Thanks a lot for watching. And yeah, man, let me know if you're on YouTube. If you give me a shout, let me know the audio and everything is all good, boys, and we'll get started right now. I'm trying to do testing, but Twitch, I stream on Twitch and Vimeo as well as YouTube. Sure that's quite easy to check everything's working. Okay, YouTube looks good. Alright, nice one, boys. Nice one. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Friday night, boys. Really appreciate it. It's not live on the site. Okay, nice one, beep beep in my Jeep. Let me just fix that for you guys right now. Just some little technical problems, boys. Nothing major. We'll get this fixed right now. Just give me 2 seconds. Let's see. Alright. Let me just see right quick here. We'll get this fixed right now for you, man. Okay. 2 seconds, beep beep in my Jeep. Thanks for letting me know, mate. We'll be good to go in just a second, I think, mate. My head is totally mashed, boys. I've had a rough week, man, and my head is just all over the place. Don't worry, though. I've still put in, like, the usual level of research we'd usually put in, but it's just been a bit of a crazy week. So, if we refresh this now, we should be good to go. Are we working? Boom. We're good. Nice one for letting me know, beep beep in my Jeep. Appreciate that, dude. Thanks a lot, mate. Nice one. Alright, cool. We'll get back to the VIP chat. A little bit busier in there with people talking about Bellator tonight, so we can have that as our backdrop while we run through the main card of this UFC Fight Night Font Garbrandt event. Cool. Let's get into it then, boys. So good to see you all, man. Like I say, thanks for hanging out with me tonight. Really appreciate it. And I'll do my best job possible of smashing through these fights as quick as I can for you in as much detail as possible. Hopefully you'll be able to use this information to make some good bets this weekend. So I'll just run through some comments. Anita Headley wants some picks for Bellator. I just heard in the chat room that Brett Johns lost. It was pretty harsh. You know, there aren't many, you know, high-level Welsh fighters. You know, not too many. Jack Shaw, you know, Mason Jones is pretty good. Brett Johns is obviously one of the best, so a little bit gutted to see he lost in Bellator. That pretty much sucks, man. It sucks. What's up, Carl, mate? Good to see you, Carl. What's up, Tarek Luna, dude? Good to see you, mate. What's up, SK Movie Watcher? Good to see you, dude. Nice one, mate. What's up, Mooch Bert? What's up, beep beep in my Jeep? What's up, MJ? Alright, boys. Nice one. Let's get into it. So, first of all, just want to start off by saying I'm really sorry that this content is late this week. I won't go into too much detail, but I've had a real shitty week, man. A very, very bad week where just a lot of stuff has gone wrong. You know what it's like. If you've got a job, you kind of have your week planned out, how everything's going to go, when you've got to do stuff, like everything's mapped out, and then occasionally stuff will just happen that you can't account for, which has to be done. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't get around it. Like, you have to prioritize fixing that problem, and then everything else kind of gets impacted. So just had absolutely massive issues with the website this week. Wasn't my fault. I don't know if I should even show you guys. I don't want to make it sound like I'm complaining or anything, but basically the company that hosts my website moved me on to a different server. This is the support staff person that handled the move for me, and they miscalculated like the how much system resources my website use when they moved servers, and then when they moved servers, for whatever reason, some files got lost and corrupted within my website. So basically my website is completely fucking, well, Monday and Tuesday my website was completely fucking broken. So when I'd normally be doing, fight research, researching fights on Monday and Tuesday, I was busy fixing the website, and it's still not fixed. Like, if you go to the home page, you can see like it's all a little bit jacked up still. It's a little bit annoying because if this would have happened next week, it wouldn't have mattered because we've got a week off from UFC next week, so I could have just got it all fixed. But because it's happened this week when we've got, UFC Fight Night Font Garbrandt on Saturday, it's just messed everything up, and it's pushed my schedule back a lot. I haven't actually fixed all the problems yet. I've kind of put a band-aid on them just to make sure the site is running smoothly and everything for my members. And then next week when we've got no UFC, then I can work on fixing the site. So fucking annoying. So I do apologise. This content is late, man. But better late than never. We'll get into it now, boys, in as much detail as usual. So we'll start off with the fight between Jack Hermansson and Edmen Shahbazyan. So the fight between So the fight between Jack Hermansson and Edmen Shahbazyan is a really interesting one because obviously Hermansson is a fighter who was in the title picture not that long ago, and Edmen Shahbazyan has been, this young, hungry bull. He comes from a gym that Dana's got a very good relationship with. I think Ronda was involved in actually getting Dana to sign Shahbazyan to the UFC in the first place. But this guy was pushed very, very quickly. He came into the UFC at just 21 years old, and he's now only 23. What I'm quite surprised at by the UFC is the speed at which they've kind of pushed Shahbazyan up through the ranks. So he came in, made his debut against relatively low-level guys like Darren Stewart and Charles Byrd. I mean, I know now Stewart is a tough opponent in the middleweight division, but back in 2018, quite low level on the ground, very, very green. Stewart was quite a low-level guy. And then, in the space of 2 years, when he's still very young, he goes from fighting, low-level guys like Charles Byrd to suddenly, fighting experienced guys like Brad Tavares and Derek Brunson. Now, I thought after he lost to Derek Brunson and he took a hell of a lot of damage in that fight, Dana and the UFC would have done the smart thing and thought, you know what, we've got this young, hungry, talented 23-year-old fighter. He's really good everywhere, decent grappling, relatively good fight IQ, pretty good striking. Let's protect this guy and build him up like they do in boxing. No need to throw him to the wolves. No need to take this young fighter into tough matchups against, guys that can really hurt him and inflict a lot of damage on him. Let's take our time with this dude. I thought after that Brunson loss, they were going to slow it down a little bit and, try and build him up, give him easier opponents to build his skill set, build his experience, and build his confidence. But that is not what has happened at all. He's gone from fighting Derek Brunson, who, isn't great, 38-year-old guy on a steep decline, not particularly dangerous standing, not particularly dangerous on the ground. He gave Shahbazyan absolute hell in the last matchup, and now they're giving Shahbazyan an even tougher fight against Jack Hermansson. I really don't understand where the UFC's going with this. But make no mistake, this is a real tough fight for Edmen Shahbazyan. The reason why this is such a tough fight for Shahbazyan is because even though he is supposed to have a base in grappling, or he allegedly has a base in grappling, he's actually quite a low-level grappler. And if you go and check out his last fight against Derek Brunson, or particularly his fight against Darren Stewart, this will become glaringly obvious to you. Shahbazyan's one of these guys that on the ground is very good at being the hammer, but not so good at being the nail. And what I mean by that is when he's working to take his opponent down, when he's in top position, when he's controlling and dictating the pace of those grappling exchanges, he's very good. But as soon as you take him down, put him on his back, he falls apart. And one thing I've also known about Shahbazyan is his gas tank is pretty good. People talk about Shahbazyan in terms of slowing down a lot as the fight goes on. We kind of saw it in the Derek Brunson fight. Definitely saw it against Darren Stewart. But if you go back and watch those fights with a Hawkeye, you'll see that Shahbazyan doesn't really gas out unless you do certain things to him. So, for example, in his last fight against Garbrandt, if you go back and watch it, even late on in the second round, he was moving well, he was looking sharp, didn't really show any signs of gassing out, really. But then, towards the end of the second round, Brunson started to get his grappling going, and then Shahbazyan just completely fell apart and was too tired to defend himself. Shahbazyan's one of these fighters who, for whatever reason, just gets very, very tired when you force him to grapple. He doesn't have that grappler's cardio, and that can get him into a lot of trouble against someone like Jack Hermansson, because Jack Hermansson's a strong offensive wrestler, heavy from top position. He can inflict a lot of damage from top position as well, and his submission game is really, really nasty. You know, we've seen him submit Kelvin Gastelum. He took Ronaldo Jacare Souza down and dominated him on the ground. David Branch is an ultra high level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Renzo Gracie. To submit a guy like David Branch is not an easy thing to do. Jack Hermansson was able to do it, which just highlights how great this guy is on the ground. So this is a tricky fight for Shahbazyan because his takedown defense is quite poor. If we go to UFC stats, I can show you that. Shahbazyan's takedown offense is struggle city. Where is he? So if we go here, his takedown offense is only 58%, which means, you know, you shoot 2 takedowns on him, you're probably going to hit one of them. And I know he hasn't fought that many strong grapplers. You know, it's not a great sample size to, you know, put together a really strong stat on that. But if you go and watch the footage, it does back up the stat. I think using stats blindly on MMA is pointless because you don't get good quality data from stats in MMA because fighters don't compete often enough to get the repetitions in to produce good quality data. On top of that, fighters are on a continuous journey of self-improvement. They're always changing, improving, evolving. Therefore, you know, the actual quality of stats suffers because you don't want to be judging a fighter on a stat based on, you know, skills that put that stat together longer ago when, you know, they hadn't tightened up certain weaknesses in their skill set. But stats can be good for shining a light on things for you to investigate further in fight research, and this is a very good one. If you look at Edmund Shahbazyan against Derek Brunson, Edmund Shahbazyan against Darren Stewart, he gets taken down very, very easily. And I always say, and we'll be talking about this a little bit later on with a couple of guys like Zhao and Yan, I always say that it's no big deal if you do get taken down, as long as you're able to work your way back up to your feet. You know, bad takedown offense isn't a deal breaker as long as you can scramble back up quickly. But Shahbazyan is super weak off his back, and so because of that, this is tricky. Because if Hermansson comes in with a grappling heavy game plan, even if Shahbazyan does manage to stuff Hermansson's takedowns early and keep the fight standing, just by Hermansson attempting to take Shahbazyan down and forcing him to defend takedowns, Shahbazyan's probably going to wear down, become tired, and then be too tired to defend takedowns into the second and third round. So this is an interesting matchup because I do give Shahbazyan quite a big advantage standing. Hermansson's striking's not great. He kind of bounces around on the outside, blitzes in once in a while with the odd big single power strike. But Shahbazyan, he's just a lot tighter, a lot more technical. He throws nice combinations. He's very, very accurate. He hits very hard. And Hermansson's a little bit like Neil Magny in that he doesn't react very well to getting hit. If you crack him and hurt him bad, he'll like turn away from you, turn his back. He'll turtle up at times. I do think there's a lot of danger here for Hermansson earlier on because of how fast Shahbazyan starts, how dangerous he is standing. But if Hermansson can, you know, force Edmund to defend takedowns in round one, if he can get the fight to the ground, even if he can't get the fight to the ground, as long as he makes Edmund work hard for takedowns, it's going to pay off big time in the second and third round. So I lean heavily towards Hermansson here because I think if Shahbazyan doesn't knock him out in round one, the probability of Hermansson, you know, losing a decision here is very low because of, you know, the chances of him getting Shahbazyan down in the second and third round is very high. And usually I would bet Hermansson in this situation. So Hermansson was a fighter that I was planning to bet this week. If we take a look at the odds, we can see that, you know, his odds are pretty generous, to be fair to you. Hermansson currently around about a call it a 1.67 favourite. So 1.67 favourite, which is minus 149 for an implied probability of 60%. You know, his odds have improved a little bit. You know, implied probability of 60%. I like that compared to the odds on Shahbazyan, currently around about 2.30, which is plus 130, which is going to give us an implied probability of 43%. So the bookies see it roughly 60-40 in favour of Hermansson. And I would agree with him. And I was planning on betting Hermansson. I think Hermansson's a good bet here. But then this interview dropped. You know, earlier this week, someone posted in the VIP chat room and was like, "Allsop, you know, what do you think about, what do you think about this interview with Hermansson?" And I saw the headline, "Jack Hermansson expects cardio to be hurt by COVID," and I thought, you know, is this just a clickbaity title? You know, we know what the MMA media are like. We know what all media is like. It's not just the MMA media. Let's be real. All media is not all media. There's some good people in the MMA media, but those are the right headlines. And you know, there's some dirty dogs in the media, and particularly some real dirty dogs, in the MMA media. So when I see a headline like that, I take it with a pinch of salt. I always go watch the interview, see exactly what Herman said. Perhaps he was joking, but when you do watch this interview, he says some really, really concerning stuff. So take a listen to this, and then we'll chat about it after we're done. Take a listen to this.
Nice. So you were ready to go, and then you had to push it back a week. I guess what happened there, and was that challenging for you?
Yeah, it was challenging because me and my whole team caught COVID and were sick. So it was not the perfect, it was not the perfect scenario to coming into this fight, but I'm happy that we were able to reschedule it because I've been in the States for 6 weeks now, and I'm not traveling home without a fight. So.
Okay, so I think it's better if I just go through this statement by statement and really pick apart what Hermansson is saying. So he just said he caught COVID 2 to 3 weeks ago. So obviously Hermansson was originally scheduled to face Shahbazyan on one of the recent cards, and he had to be pulled because he tested positive for COVID. He said him and his whole team caught COVID, and he said he was pretty rough. Now this was just 2-3 weeks ago. You guys know if you go through a serious virus, like a hardcore case of the flu, it hits you pretty hard. It takes you a while to get over it. You know, you're not able to train during that time. It can be quite often difficult to eat as well. And so the fact that Hermansson went through this just 2 to 3 weeks ago is already a bit of a red flag for me. And then what he says next, he's kind of joking, you see him smiling here, but it is also a little bit concerning as well. He says that he's been in Vegas for 6 weeks. I'm anticipating he went out early, like a week or two early, and then his fight was cancelled, and then he had COVID for another 2 weeks after that, so he had to quarantine, and now, you know, this is the week where he gets the fight. But he said he's not spending 6 weeks in Vegas without a fight. That alludes to me that maybe Hermansson doesn't want to take this fight because he's still feeling the effects of COVID. But after all the money he's probably spent to take his team over to Vegas, to train with the uncertainty of the global situation at the moment, with the fact Hermansson probably isn't on the best contract, sounds like maybe he's fighting this weekend because he needs to get paid. That statement in itself, "I'm not leaving Vegas without a fight," is a little bit of a red flag to me, and we'll carry on because there are a lot more red flags in this interview.
But 1 week is all it took? Is it so you just sick for a couple days, basically?
The thing was that the message came out about 1 week before, right? But I was sick for some time before that, but it wasn't long ago. So we, basically just started training again, and So not the perfect way to go into this fight, but anyway, I feel like I have so good conditioning when I'm 100% that after COVID, I probably should be at the same, same limits as the other guys in the division.
So what's really interesting about that segment is he said he had COVID, not that long ago, and he said it wasn't the ideal preparation coming into this fight because he had COVID not that long ago. What's very interesting about this interview, did you notice in that sequence Hermansson was like, he was like umming and ahhing a lot. He was like, he wasn't too sure what to say. I was fine, and it wasn't that long ago. He wasn't confident in his answers. When you look at the other stages of this interview, and he's getting asked about Shahbazyan, or he's getting asked about his career, or he's getting asked about anything else, perfect answers, very clear, no stuttering, no hesitation. When he's getting asked about COVID, he's struggling to give straight answers. And what's very, very interesting about this interview is when he's talking to MMA Junkie John, it's almost like he's trying to answer the question in a polite way, but he's trying not to reveal the extent of what actually happened, which is why he's kind of hesitating and trying to think about what he's going to say. This is very interesting because later on in this interview, and I'm going to play you this clip, later on, another reporter probes him a little bit more, and he kind of gives away some shit, which he probably was trying to hold back and not say. But when he gets probed, he kind of lets the cat out the bag. So listen to this.
Nice. 6 weeks in the United States. I mean, was it fun, like training here, or was it a challenge? What did you think?
No, it was good. But the thing is that I was coaching a friend of mine in another promotion, so I was in a bubble there, training with him. And
all right, guys, this is the other reporter that probes Hermansson for more information. Listen to this.
So when did you catch the COVID, and you and your team, at which point in your training camp?
It was like 2, 3, I don't remember the date, but it was just like...
Was it like in the middle of it?
No, it was in the end. Yeah, it was in...
See how he gave that away? The reporter trapped him. The reporter trapped him, man. I don't think he wanted to give away how recently he had COVID. So he's like trying to figure out an answer he can give to that question. Because the reporter straight up asked him, when did you have COVID? And so Hermansson's trying to think, okay, when can I tell him I had COVID? And he's like, I'm not sure. And then the reporter catches him out off guard, puts the words in his mouth, and he goes, was it towards the end of camp? Because, of course, if you get COVID towards the end of camp, that's very, very close to the time of the fight. And because Hermansson was scheduled last week, that would have meant Hermansson had COVID last week, or in the last 2 weeks, or very recently. So when MMA Junkie John was asking Hermansson the questions, it was a positive vibe. You know, it was just John asking him a simple question, then backing off, no probing. This reporter's trapped Hermansson. He's asked Hermansson, when did you have COVID? Hermansson's trying to cover up the fact that he literally has probably just got over it 5 or 6 days ago. He's trying to not give the game away, not be truthful. And then boom, the reporter's like, was it the beginning or the end of camp? Hermansson's like, oh, it's the end of camp. Cool, bro. That means you had COVID a week ago. A fucking week ago. Let's carry on. This reporter is a dirty dog. He probed. He got us the information we need. It's an interesting interview. There is more to come. Listen to this.
In the end, it was like just a couple of weeks ago.
Did it hit you hard?
Look at this shit. Look at this shit. Look at the vibes changed. Look at the vibe. Look at the vibe. Look at the vibe of Hermansson now compared to the Hermansson vibe when he's talking to MMA Junkie John. He actually giggles because he realizes he just shared some information he shouldn't have shared. Check it.
It was just like...
Was it like in the middle of it?
No, it was in the end. Yeah, it was in the end. It was like just a couple of weeks ago.
Did it hit you hard, or?
Yo, see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? All the way through this interview. All the way through this interview, boys. Let's move this down. My camera's off. It's gone all crazy. All the way through this interview, he's been trying to hold back from being honest about where he had COVID. And then as soon as he realizes he let slip, he giggles like, oh, fuck. Shouldn't have said that. Check it again.
It was just like...
Was it like in the middle of it?
No, it was in the end. Yeah, it was in the end. It was like...
He knows he fucked up.
Did it hit you hard, or?
Like a common flu. Fever, ache in the body, and tired and the headache. So like a normal flu.
Do you feel still any effects of it? Like, do you think it'll affect your endurance or anything during the fight?
Yo, this reporter's a dirty dog, man. This reporter's a dirty dog. He's like Ariel Helwani. You know what I mean? You can't shake him off. He's persistent. So we just asked Hermansson if he thinks COVID will affect him for this fight. Listen to what he says.
It would be weird if it didn't, I'm sure it affects my body somehow. But as I said, I'm always in superior condition. So I feel like this evens it out when it comes to the cardio.
Red Flag City. Did you fucking hear that? The reporter is like, do you think COVID will affect you for this fight? And Hermansson says, yeah, probably, bro. To be honest, I had it like a week ago. And then he said, but my cardio is already great. So I figure that by having COVID, it will just bring me down to my opponent's level and we'll be equal. That's not what you want to hear if you're betting Hermansson this week. Straight from the horse's mouth. He doesn't feel he's 100% going into this fight. Remember what we said earlier on. These guys don't get paid much. The UFC is not the most charitable organization. They don't treat fighters the best. Who knows if the UFC had to pay for Hermansson and his team's accommodation over the last 6 weeks, or if they made Hermansson pay. We don't know. Either way, Hermansson said at the beginning of that interview he's not going to Vegas for 6 weeks and leaving without a fight. This guy's probably fighting for money this weekend. So it's a red flag. I can't bet this guy. If Hermansson was coming in 100% under normal circumstances, I would bet him here because I think he's going to be able to survive against Shahbazyan early, take Shahbazyan into the second and third round where Herman can start to get his offensive wrestling going and exploiting the bad takedown offense and ground game of Shahbazyan. But after hearing Hermansson talk like that, there's no way you can bet him here. It's an easy pass for me. Hope you found that useful. Let's move on to the next fight. So we're now, should we answer some questions? Should we catch up on the chat? Let me know what you guys think about that interview. What do you guys think about that interview? Any chatting going on? Hey, what's up everyone? What's up Zach? What's up Leslie? Matern, sorry. Nice one, Matern. What's up? What's up? Yeah, let me know, boys. We'll catch up on the chat. What we got going on? What's up, Simple Kind of Man? What's up, Johan? What's up, Headley? What's up, Mayday? What's up, Benny? What's up, Hyena? Hyena said he's definitely going to be fading Hermansson after that. What's up, Presto? What's up, Joey McBride? Joey, I'm not interested in betting Shahbazyan just because I don't like betting guys that have huge holes their opponent can exploit. Hyena's saying that over 1.5 rounds is the safest bet in this fight. Edmund looks bigger than the Joker during face-offs. Alright, nice one. Not too many comments. Alright, let's move on to the next one. This one's not going to take us long to go through. This is an interesting one. Okay, let's get into it. So if we look at Bill Algeo and Ricardo Ramos, both guys are in the even money odds range. But what's interesting about this is their odds have flipped. A couple of weeks ago when the odds first come out for this fight, Ramos was the favourite. Algeo was the underdog, the slight underdog. And now Algeo's taken his place. So if we take a look at the average odds on this one, we can see that Algeo currently around about a 1.81 favourite, which is minus 123 for an implied probability of 55%. And if we take a look at the odds on Ramos, currently around about an average of 2.05, which is plus 105 for an implied probability of 49%. So with Algeo and Ramos, this is an interesting one, because I would say Ramos is better than Bill Algeo in every single aspect of MMA. Ramos has got a base in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, decent ground game, and we know that that's a particular weakness for Bill Algeo. You know, we saw Spike Carlisle take him down and causing big problems on the ground. You know, we've also seen Ricardo Lamas take him down, causing big trouble on the ground. So on the ground, from a technical point of view, Ramos will definitely have an advantage. And even though Bill Algeo does have a base in striking, I'd actually give Ramos the advantage striking as well. I think Ramos is just the more technical, polished striker. Even though Algeo moves the part, or looks the part, I should say, because of the way he moves, you know, good footwork, that in and out movement, you know, he's got that Stephen Thompson type style. this guy is more like a bargain basement Stephen Thompson, because he doesn't have the striking defense and the ability to read his opponent, the ability to control distance and range like Thompson does. So Algeo has got the look of someone like a Stephen Thompson or a Lyoto Machida, but is very flawed defensively because he can't read his opponent in the same way as high level strikers like that. So Bill Algeo's boxing defense is very, very bad. You know, overall, in general, his striking defense is very, very bad. And offensively, he's not great either. A weakness that both Algeo and Ramos share is that they both have a very kicks-based style of striking. They're not very good boxers. The vast majority of their strikes are kicks. And so, you know, neither guy is a particularly skilled striker. But I give Ramos the slight edge because he's the more complete striker with better defense, whereas Algeo is possibly a little bit better than Ramos offensively, but defensively he's very, very poor. He is there to be hit. This fight gets tricky though, because even though Ramos is better than Algeo everywhere, I still lean towards Algeo in this fight. I do think Algeo is more likely to win. I'm not going to be betting this fight personally because I don't trust either guy, but I do heavily lean towards Algeo here, just because he has the intangibles in his favour. What I mean by that is, if the most skilled fighter, you know, always won every MMA fight, this would be a very, very easy sport to predict and we would all be very, very wealthy. It's usually extremely easy for anyone to work out who the most skilled fighter is in a contest. But we know there's so much more that goes into dictating who wins and loses. When you look at a guy like Bill Algeo, he's not great on the ground. He's not great standing. He does have a tendency to slow down as the fight goes on. But he is tough as nails. He does fight at a high pace. And he is super scrappy. Algeo is just one of these guys that comes out, you know, looking very neat and tidy. Pretty footwork. You know, flashy techniques. But as soon as he gets punched in the face or taken down, all that goes out the window. And he just ends up, you know, dragging his opponents into a crazy brawl. And while, you know, he's not particularly skilled in that brawl, and he's not particularly dangerous in that brawl, he is good in a brawl because he's tough as fuck and he doesn't go away and he's very persistent and he pushes a high pace. And what's interesting about Algeo's style of brawling, his ability to drag people into wars, is that Ricardo Ramos is a bit of a glass cannon, in the sense that Ramos is one of these guys, again, very good at being the hammer, not so good at being the nail. Ramos is one of these guys that he knows he's very good. He knows he's very good standing up and on the ground. But if he goes out there and starts to get outstruck and then can't take his opponent to the ground to alleviate that pressure of having to stand in front of his opponent and take damage, he starts to check out mentally. You know, when I say Ramos fades, I don't mean in a physical sense. I don't mean gassing out. I mean, he fades in a mental sense, in terms of he loses all his confidence and just doesn't want to be in there anymore. And so here you've got two very contrasting styles. We've got a much more skilled fighter technically in Ramos, but it goes back to what GSP said, fighting is 90% mental. You know, the mental aspect of fighting is such a huge deal, and Ramos doesn't quite have that, whereas Bill Algeo has it in abundance. He's extremely tough. There's no quitting him. Even when he's so tired that he can't keep his hands up anymore, he still comes forward and attacks his opponent. And historically speaking, these type of guys are kryptonite for the type of fighter that Ramos is. So, personally, I don't really want to bet this fight. I've got some great bets this week on this card. You know, I know many of you watching this are members of my website, and I know a lot of you are going to be very happy with those bets based on the breakdown videos you will have already watched for those matchups. And from my perspective, even though I do lean Algeo, you know, we've got 4 or 5 really solid bets for this card. So when I look at a fight like this, I think to myself, if we've got our money in 4 or 5 really strong positions this week, I would expect to go, you know, 3-1 or 4-1 at least on those bets. Perhaps one of those fighters does slip on a banana skin, but for the most part, we should do really well this weekend and have a nice profitable week. Do I want to put what I perceive to be profits that are very likely to come our way, do I want to put those profits at risk in a more high risk situation? So as an example for you, later on in this, as an example for you, later on in this video, we'll be talking about why I feel Carla Esparza to beat Zhao Ningyan is a great bet this week. Okay? If Carla Esparza goes out and wins, which I think she will, I can just take that nice clean profit, pop that profit in the bank. That money's mine, no danger. That Carla Esparza money is all mine, clean profit. Do I want to take a nice easy profit on someone like Carla Esparza and put it in a lot of danger on someone like Bill Algeo? Do I want to risk going 1-1 for break even when I could just go 1-0 for a nice clean profit? Of course it can swing both ways. Maybe Esparza loses and maybe Algeo wins, right? That can happen for sure. MMA is a crazy sport. But I'm far more confident in Esparza than I am in Algeo. So why put good money in harm's way? And the reason why I don't like Algeo here is simply because Ramos is better than him everywhere. Like, there's no getting away from it. So with Algeo having a tendency to come out the gate very hard and slow down as the fight goes on, with how reckless he is, with how bad his striking defense is, do I really want to put good money in harm's way on a really risky bet where ultimately we're betting on a guy who is second best to his opponent everywhere, but we're counting on his ability to just tough it out, drag his opponent into a war and be the better man on the night in terms of toughness and, determination and the will to win. I don't know. It's up to you to make that decision. I do lean towards Algeo for sure, but not with any amount of confidence. And there are going to be some bets like that this week. Some fights that I talk about with you guys this week where I do kind of feel that way. Algeo's one of them. He's borderline for me, but it is a pass. But if you're going to bet this fight, I do think it's Algeo a pass. He probably wins this. Should we move on to the next one, boys? We'll catch up with the comments and we'll move on to the next one. All the boys talking about Bellator. So we'll catch up. We got any comments on Twitch? What's up, Side Hustle? Yeah, it's crazy, right? Side Hustle is just saying that he surprised the Jack Hermansson interview where he's talking about how COVID's likely to affect him is kind of flown under the radar. What have we got, man? What's up, Scotty Pimpin, dude? What's up, Kyle? What's up, Chai? Hope you're all good, mate. What's up, Hyena? What's up, Johan? Johan's saying 1 week after COVID, that's big if true. COVID with fever, muscle aches and so on. That's still not the mild COVID. COVID will hurt your body more compared to other viruses. Yeah, it seems to be pretty brutal, right? Southside Doug is saying you were right. I concede. Sorry for doubting you. When did you doubt me, man? I don't think you've ever doubted me. Have you, Doug, dude? All I say to you guys is I do every week. I'll talk quite openly tonight just because I've had a rough week and I just feel like firing from the hip and talking from the heart. Every week I put YouTube videos out. And I do get guys questioning my judgment, and it's just a very interesting thing when this happens. Not because I claim to be like any guru or any genius or know any more about this sport than anyone else. But what I do, and this is well documented every week, I do sit down in front of the computer and I live stream myself researching fights every week for like 2 hours. And all I do, I just sit in my pants, stream this research on my website. You got the the live stream. I'll show you guys an example, right? We can go to the betting tips page on my site, right? Let's take a look. So if we go to the area of the site which has got fight research, so I'll use Carla Esparza, Zhao Ningyan as a really good example, right? So here we've got a 1 hour 38 minute live stream where I literally sit there on camera and show you me researching the fight, talking you through what I'm seeing. And then on the back of that, I've recorded a 44-minute breakdown video on the Carla Esparza Yan Xiaonan fight where we rip we completely rip the fight apart in like tiny details and show clearly why Carla Esparza is a great bet to beat Zhao Ningyan. Now, doesn't mean Carla Esparza will beat Zhao Ningyan. It just means it's a strong position based on all the information we got available. But what's crazy is, despite the fact that I do openly do all this research and I do talk about these fights in so much depth, and I do have such a long history of being profitable on every single type of bet you could imagine, live bets, pre-fight bets, prop bets, over-unders, every single type of bet I am profitable on to do with MMA. Despite all these credentials, every single week I put a video out on YouTube and people call me a clueless dummy, doesn't know what he's talking about, and I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm like, okay mate, whatever you say. The way I look at fight research, honestly, is I don't see it as opinion, and I do say this all the time. People share their opinions on fighting, you know, on breakdown videos, you know, in articles, whatever. I do not see fighting as an opinion. I see it as being very black or white, in terms of, if I open my window and I show you, you know, a field, and I ask you what colour the grass is, I would expect you to say it's green. Just like if I play you a fight of Zhao Ningyan, I would expect every single person that watches footage on Zhao Ningyan to come to the same conclusion, because it is what it is. It's very black and white. Opinions should only come into it if you have extremely close fights which are difficult to work out, like Rob Font against Cody Garbrandt, which we've got coming up later on, or situations where people haven't done the research and they're working from hazy memories, and they're just working from what they remember happened on the fight during fight night. But if you actually sit down, do research, like, it should be very black and white. It should literally be in terms of as black and white as fucking 2 + 2 on a calculator and coming up with 4. Now, it doesn't always mean these bets are going to win, but for people to doubt the information I give them, I just, like, literally, it's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Like, what more do you want? Like, not only do I go into an incredible amount of depth on these fights, but you can also watch me researching those fights for 2 hours. It's fucking bonkers. So yeah, the whole doubting thing, honestly, man, can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? It's fucking bonkers. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on, boys. Let's get into it. We're now going to talk about Felicia Spencer against Norma Dumont. It's an interesting topology picture, this. Alright, guys. Okay, so earlier on, we were saying that Jack Hermansson was a really tempting bet, and had it not been for that whole COVID issue, I probably would be betting Hermansson this week. I'm super tempted to bet Norma Dumont here as an underdog. It's just one of those situations where, again, she's a little bit of a glass cannon, and similar to Ricardo Ramos against Bill Algeo, if this fight gets scrappy and competitive, I trust Felicia Spencer way more than I trust Norma Dumont. So, let's explain what I mean. So, let's talk about the fight between Norma Dumont and Felicia Spencer. So, if we take a look at the odds on this fight, we have got Felicia Spencer currently around about an average of 1.57, which is minus 175 for an implied probability of 64%. And if we take a look at the odds on Norma Dumont, she is currently around about an average of 2.55, which is plus 155 for an implied probability of 39%. So in the eyes of the bookies, this one's roughly 60-40 in favour of Spencer. Not sure I agree with those odds, and I do think this is one of those matchups where it is dog or pass. If you do want to bet this fight, you've got to go with Norma Dumont, but it is risky. I mean, you're always going to have to take on a good amount of risk when you do bet on an underdog, but this one's particularly risky for the reasons we'll talk about. So it's a classic striker versus grappler matchup. Felicia Spencer doesn't really have any striking, no power in her hands. I mean, I know she inflicted a decent amount of damage on Cyborg, but that was mostly because of how reckless Cyborg was. Cyborg literally went full Nate Diaz against Felicia Spencer, didn't show Spencer any respect, walked forward, hands down low, chin up high, blocking punches with her face, and I think Cyborg really forced the finish in that matchup. And you know what Darren Till says, when you put yourself in a position to finish your opponent, you also put yourself in a position to be finished. So because Cyborg was so aggressive in pursuing the finish against Spencer, she put herself in a lot of harm's way and took a lot more damage. Spencer's not that dangerous standing though, and that Cyborg fight is a little bit misleading. Spencer's not that dangerous standing. She's going to want to get this fight to the ground. Norma Dumont is a very technical striker for the bantamweight division. You know, very, very good Muay Thai. I do think she's one of the more technical strikers in the division, perhaps in the top 5. She's up there with, like, you know, girls like Irene Aldana for sure. Very, very, very technical. But she does become flatter as the fight goes on, and we've seen that in her 2 matchups in the UFC so far. She obviously slowed down after 3 or 4 minutes against Megan Anderson in her UFC debut, and was looking, you know, real flat by the end of the second round against Ashley Evans-Smith. But Smith wasn't skilled enough to make her pay for it. So who is going to win this fight is really going to come down to whether or not Spencer can get this fight to the ground. What's interesting about this matchup is that Spencer's not a particularly skilled grappler, so even if this fight goes to the ground, I don't necessarily think Spencer's got the advantage. For me, Norma Dumont has a huge advantage over Spencer when it comes to striking, but I'm not sure if Spencer actually does have an advantage over Dumont on the ground. Dumont can definitely hold her own on the ground. It's kind of hard to call because when she went to the ground with Ashley Evans-Smith, she looked really, really strong on the ground. But then when she was on the ground against Megan Anderson, she looked pretty weak. But that was because she was already very, very tired. She stepped up on short notice at 145 pounds to make that debut. And who knows what kind of shape she was in. But this is a tricky one because Spencer's offensive wrestling isn't great. You know, we hit a really nice winning bet last week on Priscilla Cachoeira at big dog odds. And one of the reasons why we bet Cachoeira against Gina Mazzani was because we said the majority of Gina Mazzani's takedown attempts come above hip height. It's difficult to hit takedowns on your opponent above hip height. And we saw that towards the end of the second round. As soon as Cachoeira got her legs underneath her, and Mazzani wasn't able to tie up those legs anymore off that body lock that came above hip height, Mazzani really struggled to get Cachoeira to the ground in the second half of that second round. Spencer definitely has the same trouble that Mazzani has. All her takedowns come above hip height. She's very stiff, she's very rigid, she's very upright. She struggles to drive in deep on her opponent's hips and legs, which makes it very, very difficult for her to take her opponents down. Now, if we look at a picture of Norma Dumont, I promise that this is for scientific reasons only. In fact, her Instagram is probably a very, very good place to go. This is for scientific study only, guys. But if we look at Norma Dumont's body type, this is a good picture to keep it professional. If you look at Norma Dumont's body type, she is, what word can I use? I need to describe her body type for scientific purposes. Let's compare her to Tyrone Woodley, okay? So, if this is Norma Dumont, right, on the far left. So, if you think about a fighter with really bad takedown offense, think about someone like Stefan Struve, right? Why does Stefan Struve have bad takedown offense? Well, he's long, he's tall, his nickname is the Skyscraper, and he's got long, old, skinny legs. If you want to take a skyscraper down, if you want to demolish a skyscraper or a tall building, what is the best way to demolish a tall building? You attack the base, you attack the legs. And so, you know, the taller you are, the leaner, the lankier you are, the easier it usually is to upset your balance. We saw this very recently in the fight between Marcos Rogério de Lima and Maurice Green. Green is this big, long, tall, skinny dude, but that comes at a cost. And we saw how bad his takedown defense was against Marcos Rogério de Lima. It's that skinny frame, those skinny legs, makes it very easy to upset your balance. The opposite is true when you have a smaller, shorter, more compact fighter with a thicker base, a thicker, I don't want to be disrespectful, a thicker, you know what I'm saying, like a Tyron Woodley body type or like an NFL running back body type, right? You think about like a Marshawn Lynch, you know, strong core, strong base, thick old legs, you know, muscular. That is the exact body type that Norma Dumont has got. And that is significant here because in order to take your opponent down, you've usually got to shoot in really deep on their hips and upset their balance. Felicia Spencer's not a very good offensive wrestler. Her takedown entries come above hip height. And so she could really, really struggle to take someone down like Norma Dumont because of how heavy their base is, how strong their base is. And so I do think Spencer's going to struggle quite bad here because she's going to get dominated standing, and I don't think she's going to be able to get this fight to the ground. That's why I do lean Dumont here, and I think this is a dog or pass matchup where if you really want to bet this matchup, you have to take Dumont. Where it gets complicated, though, is that Dumont does slow down a lot as the fight goes on. We saw against Megan Anderson, she gassed out after 2 or 3 minutes. And again, if you're interested in betting this fight, I strongly recommend you go back and watch the second and third round of her fight against Ashley Evans-Smith, where she was breathing very, very heavily at the end of round 2, struggling to defend herself, quite honestly. It's just Evans-Smith completely let her off the hook and didn't attack her. I don't think Smith could sense how tired Dumont was. Spencer, for all of her weaknesses, she isn't great at anything. She's not a particularly strong grappler, not particularly heavy from top position, not particularly skilled on the ground, but she is tough as nails. She is a buzzsaw. She does push a high pace. There aren't many girls in women's MMA that can say they were able to go the distance with Chris Cyborg and Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes, Chris Cyborg, two of the most dangerous fighters. Let's call an egg an egg. They are the two most dangerous fighters in the history of women's MMA, right? Extremely dangerous. Both girls, vicious knockout power, and Spencer took a lot of damage in both these matchups, but neither girl was able to finish her. She had her nose crushed against Nunes, was hanging on for her life in the 4th and 5th round. Against Cyborg, took a lot of damage on the ground there when Cyborg was hammering her with that ground and pound. She hung in there, she's tough, and she's persistent. So here, this fight is very similar to Bill Algeo versus Ricardo Ramos, where we've got a more technically skilled fighter in Norma Dumont. I actually do think Dumont is a better grappler than Spencer from what I've seen. But is she going to be able to keep up with the pace that Spencer's going to set? Because even though Spencer's going to struggle to get that takedown, she's going to keep coming forward, she's going to keep shooting takedowns, and she's going to be very persistent in her efforts to get this fight to the ground. And like we were talking about with Edmund Shahbazyan, it doesn't matter if Hermansson hits takedowns on Shahbazyan. The fact that he is shooting takedowns and forcing Shahbazyan to just defend them will mean Shahbazyan will be exerting energy, and then that'll pay off for Hermansson in the 2nd and 3rd round. I think it's the same for Spencer. Spencer doesn't need to get this fight to the ground in order to win, even though she'll be outstruck standing. As long as she can keep fishing for those takedowns, it'll wear Dumont down, even if Spencer doesn't get them, and then that'll really pay off for Spencer into the 2nd and 3rd. So this is a really tricky fight for me, because the question becomes, at what point in the fight do we see a momentum swing in Spencer's favour? Does it happen early in round 1, which opens the door for Spencer to finish round 2 strong, nick the 2nd round, win the 3rd dominantly? Or are Dumont's technical advantages over Spencer so great that Dumont will be enough to win the 1st and the 2nd, and then even if she gets tired in the 3rd, because Spencer's not that dangerous, she's going to be able to coast and take down a nice decision win? That's the tricky aspect of this fight for me. I completely and utterly lean Dumont. I think as an underdog, as an underdog, she's the better bet here. Dumont gives you the better risk to reward ratio, but it's dangerous to bet Dumont because Spencer's tough, scrappy, pushes a high pace, and Dumont is there to be broken, man. She does gas out as the fight goes. So I hope you found that useful. Let's move on to the next fight. We got any comments? I think all the homies are talking about JB is Jay is being a lot more scientific than me with describing Dumont's appearance. What's up, boys? What's up? Yeah, JB being a lot more scientific than me. Alright, let's catch up on the comments. We got anything on Twitch? Nothing on Twitch. Twitch quite quiet. What's up, Johan, mate? Hyena saying Spencer's she can strike. Boy, you boys are brutal with the wording. Absolutely brutal. But yeah, I would say dog or pass for sure, man. Alright, let's get into the next one. Also, boys, just for a little bit of fun, I've just literally looked to my left and I'm like, oh shit, look. Rose Namajunas rookie cards. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Rose Namajunas rookie cards, boys. It's not bad, is it? So if anyone needs any Rose Namajunas rookie cards, hook, I can hook you up, boys. I don't need 9 of them. So if you need a Rose Namajunas rookie card, let me know. And the dude that sold me these rookie cards, I bought all 9 off the same dude. I must have been Pat Barry. I must have bought these off Pat Barry or something. If you guys need the Rose Namajunas card, let me know. And the very kind dude that sold me these cards threw this in for free. I can't really work out what set it's from. It's dated 2017, but it's numbered 36 out of 215. So that's a free card. That's not bad. But yeah, if you need those Rose Namajunas rookies, I got you, boys. Hit me up. Also got, I'm just noticing random cards I've got on my desk. I've also got these vintage Marvel cards from 1990. Check out the design, how controversial this is. They put the swastika on the Marvel design. You'd never get that shit with Disney. How times change. This is an official Marvel. See, it says Marvel Comics in the top there. Marvel Comics, man. You'd never get that from Disney these days. I didn't even know it had a swastika on them. I just bought them in bulk. You see various different designs. I didn't even know there was a swastika on there. So how times change, man. Disney have powder puffed the Marvel universe up. Swastikas on some trading cards. Who would have thought? Anyway, let's go. Let's get into it. Let's get into the next fight. Okay, we're now going to talk about the fight between Jared Vandeira and Justin Tafa. So if we take a look at the odds on the next one, we can see that Justin Tafa currently around about a 1.55 favourite, which is minus 182 for an implied probability of 65%. And if we take a look at the odds on Vandeira, currently around about an average of, call it 2.55, which is going to be plus 155 for an implied probability of 40%. So again, bookies have got this one close to 60-40 in favour of Tafa, and I do agree with them. I will be betting Tafa this weekend. It is a risky bet, but I do like him to win here. It is a bit risky, but I do like him to win. So what's interesting about I'll explain the reason why. Let me just try and think about the best way to word this. This is the second time I've done a breakdown video on this fight this week. What's the easiest way I can describe it? Okay, so Justin Tafa and Jared Vandeira have both got huge weaknesses, which is what makes betting Justin Tafa a little bit dangerous. But what's interesting about their weaknesses is that they both have the same weakness. Their weakness is on the ground, right? If we think about Justin Tafa, you know, the areas we've seen him struggle, very much on the ground. You take him down, he's very weak off his back, he's like a white belt on the ground. But then we saw in Jared Vandeira's UFC debut, Spivak taking him down easily and inflicting major amounts of damage on him on the ground. Now, what's interesting about these two fighters is Jared Vandeira is better on the ground offensively, but Justin Tafa is better on the ground defensively. And what I mean by that is, remember earlier on we were talking about how it's not always a big deal if you have bad takedown defense, as long as you can quickly work your way back up to your feet. The problem with Jared Vandeira is that he doesn't. So we know Sergey Spivak's not a very strong grappler, not a very skilled grappler, and yet every time he took Vandeira down in Vandeira's UFC debut, Vandeira would just hesitate on his knees, you know, as Spivak hit the takedown. And then instead of him, when he was on his knees, using the cage as a base to wall walk and explode back up to his feet, when Spivak didn't really have control of him off a body lock or wasn't tying the legs up, he would just hesitate. And because he hesitated to pop back up to his feet, that enabled Spivak to flatten him out and start to inflict major damage on the ground. So Vandeira's got bad takedown defense, but on the ground, he's very bad defensively as well. That's where Tafa differs. Tafa's also very bad on the ground, but even though Tafa is like a white belt on the ground, he's a lot like his mentor Mark Hunt. You know, he's a lot like Tai Tuivasa. If we think about Tuivasa, if we think about Mark Hunt, even though these guys don't have very good takedown defense, the characteristic that has defined Mark Hunt's entire career is that as soon as Mark Hunt hits the ground, he tries to pop back up to his feet like a spring. And there are guys that won't allow him to do that. Stipe Miocic, probably the best example I can think of. There are guys that will get to Mark Hunt and tie him up, before he has an opportunity to scramble back up to his feet. He's very, very hard to hold down. You see that from Tafa. As soon as this guy hits the ground, he's immediately looking to pop back up to his feet. So these guys do have major weaknesses on the ground. Huge weaknesses. But for me, Tafa at least tries to get back up to his feet quickly, whereas Vandeira very much accepts being on the ground. Now, what's different about both these guys is Vandeira is a lot better on the ground offensively. He does look for takedowns, and when he gets into top position, he is heavy from top position, does inflict a decent amount of damage from top position. This is dangerous for Tafa because both these guys are very bad on the ground. So even though they're both bad on the ground, what it means is if either Tafa or Vandeira gets into top position, they're likely to have a lot of success. So Tafa definitely doesn't want to be on the ground against Vandeira. You know, even though Vandeira is a low-level dude, he's very big, 6'4", 80-inch reach, weighs 265 pounds. Tafa doesn't want this dude on top of him. It's as simple as that. But Vandeira is not the most skilled on the ground, just a big, heavy dude that hits hard. But both these guys are primarily strikers, and I think that's why Tafa is worth a bet here, because even though if Vandeira gets into top position on the ground, both guys are pretty low level on the ground, okay? So neither guy has a huge advantage on the ground, but standing up, Tafa has a huge advantage. Now, that doesn't mean to say if the fight goes to the ground, Vandeira can't dominate Tafa. I'm not talking about this fight like it's fucking Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman, where they're both going to neutralize each other on the ground, so neither guy's going to have any success on the ground, so they just don't bother with the ground. It ain't like that. If Vandeira does get into top position on Tafa, Tafa's screwed. All I'm saying is both guys are pretty shit on the ground. It's not like Tafa's going up against a really strong, really skilled grappler here. So with both these guys being predominantly strikers, I do expect this fight to stay standing, and if it stays standing, Tafa's got an enormous advantage. I personally feel that Tafa showed us a lot of amazing stuff in his last fight against Carlos Felipe. I think Carlos Felipe is an absolutely brilliant fighter. I think he is one of the best boxers in the heavyweight division. He might even be the best boxer in the heavyweight division. Felipe is an absolutely excellent boxer, talented young fighter, and an absolute nightmare, to be quite honest with you. This is why wiki capping can get you into a lot of trouble, because you see Tafa losing his last fight against Carlos Felipe and you could write him off. But I do think that Tafa's loss to Felipe was the most impressive performance of his career. He went toe-to-toe with Felipe for 3 rounds, which is not an easy thing to do with how good Felipe is. And he hung in there with Felipe, pushed him all the way to a split decision. Tafa showed us a lot of good stuff in that fight. He showed us that he's got a great gas tank for a heavyweight. Showed us that he's got a great chin. Showed us he's very, very tough. And, he also showed us that he can hold his own against a very, very high level striker. And so when he goes up against guys like Jared Vandeira or guys like Juan Adams, he's likely to cause him a lot of trouble. What I really like about Tafa's style is that it is very, very similar to Mark Hunt, in that he's very fast, very accurate, very powerful, very good boxer. And he understands all this, so he doesn't like to lead. What's very interesting is Tafa is a counter striker, and the only time he kind of flipped the script on himself and led the dance was against Jorgen De Castro, and he got himself knocked out. In his last 2 fights, when he's reverted back to his counter striking style, his boxing's looked excellent. And Tafa's style is the fight out of the southpaw stance, very traditional southpaw boxing stance. And Tafa's style is to throw jabs, long-range finding strikes, such as, the occasional half-assed hook that he doesn't commit to, or a jab, or a leg kick, or a body kick. But these kicks are purely to bait his opponent into firing back. So when you see Tafa throw these range-finding strikes, he's not really looking to score points. He's not really looking to score damage. He's kind of playing tag. It's kind of like that annoying little brother or sister that punches you in the arm and then runs away because they want you to chase them. That's what Tafa's doing. He'll poke you with a jab. He'll chip away at your lead leg with a leg kick. He'll throw a body kick out there saying, "Come and get me." Because what he wants to do is use his ability to read you so that when you come forward and attack him, he can slip whatever you're throwing at him and counter you with a nuclear missile. That's why he struggled against Carlos Felipe. Carlos Felipe is a very, very good boxer. He knew the game Tafa was playing because they were both trying to play the same game. And so we ended up with this really tight competitive chess match where both guys were excellent defensively. And, you know, both guys had their moments throughout that matchup. It was a razor close fight. But that's why Tafa did well against Juan Adams. Because when Juan Adams was coming forward and attacking him, Juan Adams wasn't conscious of the traps that Tafa was setting him up for. And he also wasn't conscious that Tafa was actually baiting him into coming forward and attacking. And Adams got, you know, wobbled and then knocked out very, very badly in this fight. Tafa caught him twice. He wobbled him about 30 seconds before he actually then wobbled him again and put him away. So that Adams fight is a very good example when you compare it to the Felipe fight of how, depending on the skill level of the striker, will depend on how much success Tafa is likely to have. If he's going up a fellow good boxer who understands the game he's playing, you're probably going to see both guys in the centre of the octagon chipping away at each other, scoring points. When Tafa fights these more low-level heavyweights that aren't aware of the level of striking Tafa's at and what he's trying to set them up for, those guys are going to get knocked out. And Vandeira definitely fits that mould. There's, you know, two different types of strikers that we always talk about, right? There's the type of striker like a Stephen Thompson's a really good example, or a Lyoto Machida, or an Anderson Silva, or an Israel Adesanya. There are many examples, but those guys are laser focused on their opponent, and they're downloading all the information that their opponent is giving them, so that when their opponent comes forward and attacks, they're figuring out, you know, what their opponent's coming forward with. They are trying to get a read on them and react to what they're doing. And the longer the fight goes, the more reads they get, the more information they download, and then the more dangerous they become. That's a very reactive style of fighter that is trying to work out their opponent and counteract everything they're doing. It's the beautiful counter striking style. Then you've got the other kind of striker, the other kind of striker that is kind of, because they don't have that level to react and read their opponent, instead they're just coming forward with pre-programmed combinations and they're not fully considering how their opponent may react to that. So if we think about fighters with that kind of style, Ben Rothwell, very much a guy with that style who we'll see this weekend. Who else have we got with that style? There's lots of guys. My mind's gone blank. Macy Barber, probably a really good example of that style. Carla Esparza, who we're going to be talking about next, is a good example of that style. Lots of examples. And what I mean by that is, you think about Carla Esparza, and we'll talk about this next. Carla Esparza attacks her opponent with pre-programmed combinations. Jessica Andrade is an even better example. Jessica Andrade will decide, I'm going to go forward now, and I'm going to throw 2 left hooks and 2 right hooks, and Jessica Andrade will go forward, boom, 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 and then she'll stop. That's Jessica Andrade. She'll get in her mind, I'm going forward and I'm doing that. Not reacting to her opponent in any way, and not conscious of whatever her opponent may do to react to that combination that she's throwing at them. And of course, you know, when you do get an opponent that is very reactive and will try to react to what they're doing, you get like a Weili Zhang situation where Andrade blitzes forward with a pre-programmed combination. Zhang wants to react to what Andrade is doing. Zhang takes one backward step, lands a bomb, sits Andrade down. That's the dynamic we've got here. Tafa is very much in the moment. He's in the matrix. He's laser focused. He's reading everything Vandeira is giving him. Whereas Vandeira, when he comes forward, is coming forward with pre-programmed combinations. You know, pumping the jab, throwing the power right hand. And so you can start to see where Tafa becomes a good stylistic. You can start to see now where Tafa becomes a good bet here, because this ain't going to go down like the Carlos Felipe fight, because Vandeira can't read Tafa. So what you're going to see happen is Vandeira is going to come forward recklessly, throwing his straight punches, and Tafa, laser focused, is going to be reading what he's bringing to the table and looking to counter. And because Vandeira can't read Tafa, because he's just not at that level, he's going to walk on the bombs. Because Tafa's fast, accurate, and he hits very hard. And you know what they say, the shots that knock you out are the ones you don't see coming. and Vandeira just doesn't see the shots coming. So I do like Tafa in this fight. It's risky because if it goes to the ground, he's in a lot of trouble. Don't get me wrong, this is a risky bet. But if the fight stays standing, which I think it will, Tafa's a good bet here. Hope that made sense. And yeah, let's move on to the next one, man. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, let's move on. Let's go. Alright, what comments have we got, boys? Anyone wanna... What's up, Solar Cowboy? Good to see you, Solar. Oh, Solar, man, I emailed you this week, mate. Let me know if you got the email, man. I'm really sorry that I emailed you back late, man. I'm fucking terrible at answering emails. I do really apologise, Solar, dude. But I hope everything's okay with you, mate. What's up, the Jasons, dude? Good to see you, man. Oh, shit. What's this, Zach? What set is this, mate? Oh, this looks like a familiar set. Is this the same set as this? No. It's the same set as this, right? Is that the same set? I can't work it out, bro. Oh, no. Wait. It's the same set as this. That's the same set, right? What cards are these, dude? Because the guy gave it to me. No, this is... I don't even know what set this is. I bought this a while back. 2015. Have you got a rose there? Very nice, dude. Is this the Chronicles box you bought? Very nice, mate. Is this a Chronicles box you cracked open, mate? Who were the signed cards? Demetrius Johnson. Not bad, dude. Not bad. And Jacare. Very nice, man. Very nice, dude. You cracked that bad boy open tonight. Nice, Zach. Cheers, dude. Demetrius Johnson, man. Yeah, you could see some documentaries and shit getting made about that guy in the future, right? One of the GOATs. What's up, boys? Hyena is saying Vandeira has a 4-inch height and a 6-inch reach advantage. Backed up with his experience should make him the favourite in this fight, right? Well, Stefan Struve has the longest wingspan in the history of MMA, and he's had like 40 or 50 pro fights. So by your logic, Stefan Struve should be the best fighter in the world. But throw him in there against Francis Ngannou, I don't think it would end well for Struve. So I don't think your logic is great with that one, dude. Oh, SK movie watcher, man. Send me an email, dude. I'll hook you up with a rose, dude. Hook you up, mate. Send me an email. I definitely don't need 9 rose rookies. I know that for damn sure. Let me know, dude. Send me an email, mate. And we'll hook it up, man. No, Hyena, you're not gauging this fight correctly, dude. Tafa doesn't need to replicate what Spivak did. Spivak took Vandeira down, right, and beat him up on the ground. Tafa's a boxer. What we're saying is Tafa can keep the fight standing and outstrike Vandeira. He doesn't need to replicate what Sergey did. He comes in with a completely different game plan. Hyena's saying, I expect a stand-up battle, and I hope Vandeira doesn't get too close. So I still feel like Tafa has more power, but Vandeira has that reach. Have you ever seen I don't want to be a dick, but I don't think you've ever seen Vandeira fight. This is why fight research, like watching the footage, is really useful, man, because the Vandeira you're describing is not the Vandeira I've watched this week. It's a different thing, man. Very different thing. Yeah, I would definitely go, say, just watch a couple fights on Vandeira, dude. I think you might be confusing him with someone else. Hunter Silvers is saying, is the hobby box worth the investment? I don't think the hobby box will ever go down in value, dude. You know what I mean? I don't think the hobby box is ever going down in value. Unless it's like a fucking apocalypse or something. Kylo, how much for a Rose rookie? I honestly don't know how much they're worth, boys. I've got no idea how much those cards are worth. They just arrived today. 9 of them. 9 rookies. There's 2 different designs though, so I don't know if there's a difference in the designs. Yeah, hopefully Chris Grieve, mate. Fingers crossed, man. Hopefully they will be worth a decent amount, mate. Yeah, you know what, Nick? I'm just hoping that he. I'm just hoping he doesn't hit a takedown. I'm worried about Tafa on the ground, but if Tafa can keep it standing, he should do work. I probably wouldn't bet Tafa straight this weekend if I'm being honest, but hopefully, man, he can keep it standing. Fingers crossed. I think he can. All right, let's get into the next one then, boys, and then we're almost done here. So now let's talk about the fight between Xiaonan Yan and Carla Esparza. So, I can't wait for people to slide in the comments and tell me that Xiaonan Yan's going to knock Carla Esparza out because of how powerful she is. I don't know what it is about these Chinese fighters, but people talk about these Chinese fighters like they're fucking Thanos or something. I honestly don't know what it is. These Chinese fighters are super hyped. I even noticed on Twitter the other day, someone posted in the VIP chat, the UFC Twitter was promoting Yan. Let's see if it's been recent. Oh, we'll use this in a minute, actually. This is quite useful. Yeah, that's a useful thing to show you boys, actually, for this breakdown. We will use that in just a sec. Because I see Hyena's talking about size in the... YouTube chat, so we'll show you where size might actually work against the fighter. So yeah, this whole Chinese thing is very interesting because it's quite clear the UFC obviously giving China a huge push, which you can understand, right? China is the biggest market in the world. You know, China is one of the fucking origins, well, the birthplace of mixed martial arts, some may say, you know, birthplace of martial arts. And you can see, man, they're promoting Yan very, 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 very highly here. You see, you know, fight week prep on point, and they've actually got Yan in a more prominent picture than the guy in the main event, which is kind of bonkers, right? You know, the guy in the main event is in a more prominent position. Was YouTube just cut out? No, I was looking all right. Yeah, so they're promoting Yan pretty heavily, right? I find this very puzzling. Earlier on in the video, we were saying the matchmaking of Jack Hermansson and Edmund Shahbazyan was really weird because you'd think that with Shahbazyan being a very, very talented young fighter, you'd think the UFC would give him more favourable matchmaking, protect him a little bit like we saw or like we see in boxing, try and build him up a little bit instead of throwing him to the wolves. But instead of trying to protect him, building his confidence back up a little bit after a brutal loss to Derek Brunson, they're throwing him right back in against the top guy in Jack Hermansson, which is kind of nuts. And what is really strange to me about the UFC is that they're clearly trying to build up these Chinese fighters, right? I personally, and I will keep saying this, I personally believe Weili Zhang is a very average fighter. She was fast-tracked into a title shot. And it's clear the UFC are really, really pushing these Chinese fighters. So if you're pushing these Chinese fighters, look, there's nothing you can do about matching Zhang up against Rose. Zhang was the champ. You know, she needed to fight Rose. Rose was the #1 contender. You can't protect the champion from tough matchups. I get Zhang, Rose. I get that. But you don't have to throw Yan in there against tough stylistic opponents. You know, give her a little bit of time to improve. Give her a little bit of time to tighten up her skill set. You don't need to be throwing Yan to the wolves. Give her some easier matchmaking. You know, let her rack up some wins and get into that title picture with favourable matchmaking. Instead, what they've done is give her one of the most difficult stylistic matchups in the division. I mean, if you would have asked me to research Xiaonan Yan and make a list of the top 5 strawweights who would cause Yan the biggest problems, Carla Esparza would be top of the list. And I just think, again, this is a situation where people aren't really fully considering how these two fighters match up from a stylistic point of view. Hype is running wild on Yan because she's this exciting, aggressive striker, but they're not actually considering how these girls match up. So if we take a look at the odds on this fight, we can see that both girls are in that even money odds range now. Obviously, we bet Carla Esparza last week, so the odds on Esparza were a lot better last week. We bet Esparza at about 2.35 plus 135. So her odds have declined a lot since we bet her. So when I'm talking about Esparza being a great bet, I'm kind of coming at it from the perspective that I bet Esparza at, where I'm getting a very good risk to reward ratio on Esparza being a moderate underdog. However, even though she's not as good of a deal now at these odds, I do still think she is a good deal. I do think she should be the favourite. If I was capping this fight, I'd have Esparza at like a 1.6, 1.7 favourite, which would be in the minus 154 odds range. Yeah, that's bang on the money. I'd cap Esparza at about 60% here. I think this is a fight 60-40 in favour of Carla. Why do I favour Carla? So this is a classic striker versus grappler matchup. Zhao and Yan wants to keep the fight standing, put a lot of pressure on Esparza and just chip away at her with her striking. Esparza wants to get this fight to the ground, lay on top of Yan, grind her out from top position, win a comfortable decision. So the winner of this fight is going to be the girl that is able to implement their game plan the best and dictate where this fight takes place. If you go and look at Yan's past fights, you'll see that her takedown defense is a joke. I would say that Yan has some of the worst takedown defense in the division for sure. I can't think of many girls with worse takedown defense than Yan. And so throwing her in there against a good offensive wrestler like Esparza is chaos to me. And throughout this video, where we've talked about Jared Vandeira and Justin Tafa and Edmund Shahbazyan, we've said it's no big deal if you have bad takedown defense, as long as you can work your way back up to your feet very quickly. This is why I'm very, very high on a guy like Jamal Hill, who's fighting Paul Craig in a few weeks. Jamal Hill's takedown defense is quite bad, but it's very, very difficult to hold Jamal Hill down. As soon as you take him down, he immediately looks to explode back up to his feet. Those guys are tricky to deal with, because what happens is when you have a guy like Hill with a great gas tank that's very hard to hold down, wrestlers waste energy taking them down, and then when they just quickly pop back up to their feet, it's demoralizing for the wrestler, and the more the wrestler tries to take the dude down and the less success they have holding him down, the more energy they burn through, the less effective their wrestling becomes. Yan is one of those fighters that very much accepts being on the bottom. So if you go back and watch Yan and Yan's fight against Claudia Gadelha, Angela Hill or Kaylin Curran, the three fighters that have taken her down, you'll see that as soon as Yan gets taken down, she immediately rolls to her back, accepts being on the bottom, goes to close guard and just tries to tie her opponent up. Yan makes zero effort to work her way back up to her feet. And remember, when I'm talking about these fights, it's always in the context of what the research has shown us up until this point. I don't know if Yan's going to show up Saturday night with dramatically improved takedown defense and a much better ability to work her way back up to her feet. I don't have a crystal ball. But what I can tell you is, based on past performances, Yan has some of the worst takedown defense in the division, and she's horrendously bad off her back. If she shows up and fights like she did against Claudia Gadelha, Angela Hill or Kaylin Curran, Esparza will be able to take her down easily and dominate. We're talking about Esparza racking up 3-4 minutes of top control in every round. We're talking about 10-8 rounds. We're talking about utter domination. Yan has absolutely nothing on the ground. So this is an extremely good fight for Carla Esparza. A very, 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 very good stylistic matchup, because Yan isn't particularly dangerous standing. We all saw her fight Karolina Kowalkiewicz when Kowalkiewicz was on a steep decline. She inflicted a massive amount of damage on Kowalkiewicz, but she couldn't put her away. Yan's very much a volume striker, and we know Carla Esparza doesn't want to strike with anyone. Esparza's style of striking is to bounce around on the outside and keep a big enough distance between her and her opponent so that her opponent can't get close enough to her to land any strikes. So Esparza will bounce around on the outside, and then she'll pick her moments to shoot in and drive in hard on double leg takedown attempts. Carla Esparza's timing on her double legs, some of the best in the division. Esparza's certainly nowhere near the best grappler in the division, but I'd say her timing on her double legs is probably the best in the division. There's certain fighters in every division where they may not be the best grappler, but their double leg is brilliant. Belal Muhammad is a really good example of this in the welterweight division. Belal is nowhere near the best wrestler, but Belal Muhammad actually has better double leg shots than Colby Covington or Kamaru Usman, who are considered to be the two best wrestlers in the welterweight division. Esparza is a great example of that. Her double leg shot is brilliant, and that's very notable and very significant against someone like Zhao and Yan. because Yaonin Yan doesn't have that grappling IQ to read when those takedown entries are coming. Esparza's drive on those double legs is very, very good. It's going to be extremely hard for Yan to shut those takedowns down. And the problem with Yan is she's got a very similar weakness to what we saw early on from Priscilla Cachoeira last week against Gina Mazzani, in that she's very rudimental in her approach to takedown defense. So Carla Esparza, coming from her traditional wrestling background, is like a buzzsaw. I'm not going to compare her to Gregor Gillespie. Obviously, she's not on the level of Gregor Gillespie, but she brings the same threats at a much lower level. When Gregor Gillespie shoots a takedown, really he's just looking to get close enough to you, tight enough to you, to get a hold of you so that you can start to work through different techniques until one of them becomes successful for him. You look at Gregor, he'll shoot a double leg. You might stuff that double leg, he'll go to the single leg. You might stuff that single leg, he'll go to the body lock. You deal with the body lock, he'll drop back down with the single leg. And Gregor will keep rotating through different takedown attempts until he eventually puts you on your back. Esparza is exactly the same. Once she gets tight to you and once she gets hold of you, she tries to stick to you like glue. And these kind of offensive wrestlers will cause fighters like Yan a lot of trouble, because Yan in a vacuum has all right takedown defense in terms of, if you shoot a single leg on Yan, she'll probably do a pretty good job of dealing with it. If you shoot a body lock takedown on Yan, she'll probably do a pretty good job of dealing with it. But if you shoot a body lock takedown on Yan and she stuffs it, but you've got tight enough to keep a hold of that body lock and hold on to her, she will have no idea what you're going to attempt to do next. So then the inside trip becomes available, the outside trip becomes available. You can drop down for a single leg, which she'll then start to deal with, and then go back to the body lock and hit a trip when she's not, she hasn't got her legs back underneath her from the single leg. Yan is very, very susceptible to chain wrestling because her takedown defense isn't at the level yet where she can read what's coming next. So we were talking about Tafa earlier on, his great ability to read what his opponent is going to do in terms of striking. Yan doesn't have the ability to read what's coming next when it comes to grappling. This is what makes grapplers like Kimeyev so formidable. A lot of the time, if you've got good takedown defense, you can make a very good prediction as to what's coming next so that you can prepare for it and shut it down before your opponent goes to it. The problem with a guy like Kimeyev is that he kind of beats you to it because he thinks so fast and he works through positions so quickly. I mean, you look at a guy like Yan, I'm not comparing Esparza to Kimeyev, but Esparza can chain wrestle her ass off, and I don't think Yan's ready for it. I do think Carla's going to be able to get her down quite easily. And the thing is, when the fight's on the ground, Yan does absolutely nothing off her back. Has no attempt, no idea how to work her way back up to her feet. She's just clueless. Just lies on her back in close guard, holding on to her opponent, hoping the ref stands him up. It's a real bad stylistic matchup for Yan. I would even go as far as this. If Yan shows up and performs like she did against Claudia Gadelha, and Carla Esparza shows up and performs like she did against Marina Rodriguez, I'd cap Esparza at like 80%. Like, this is such an easy fight for Carla, it is disgusting. So you're probably wondering, where does the risk come in? Because there's risk with every bet, right? Every bet can lose. There's going to be risk with every bet. So what's risky about Carla Esparza? Well, the risk is Carla doesn't really have any striking, which means she doesn't really have striking to set up her takedowns. And even if she did have striking, she doesn't hit very hard anyway. She's very small at 5'1". She's got a real bad case of pillow fists. So one of the things that goes against Esparza, and one of the reasons why a lot of girls have success shutting down her wrestling, is that she has this style where she likes to be all the way out of her range where she can be hit, or all the way in working for takedowns, or blitzing forward with her straight punch combinations. Her opponents know that every time she starts to blitz forward, a takedown's probably coming, so that they can prepare for it when she starts to come forward. And the problem with Esparza is, because she maintains such a big distance between her and her opponents, they can see her coming from much further away than if she were to shoot a takedown from kickboxing range. So she doesn't have the striking to set up the takedowns, and because she's shooting from so far away, they can also see her come in and have a bigger window to start to lower their hands, get those underhooks in play early as she shoots in. So Esparza is a very good offensive wrestler, but she is a little bit predictable. And obviously, whenever you have a predictable style of fighting, you can game plan for that. It's a lot easier to formulate strategies to beat someone like Esparza, because you know their game plan is the same in every fight. So that is definitely, one of the risks to betting Esparza here. The second risk is that Yan for the last couple of years has been training at a predominantly grappling-based gym. So if we scroll down, we can see her here with Team Alpha Male, and she's been here for about 2 years now. And obviously, if you needed to improve your grappling, you'd think Team Alpha Male was a great gym to go to. You think about all the high-level grapplers they produced over the years. It's literally a who's who of high-level grapplers. But nothing lasts forever, and we see MMA gyms go through these cycles where they have booms and busts, right? You look at a gym like, Jackson Wink MMA. There was a time where you'd see Greg Jackson cornering 5 or 6 fighters on every card. You get guys like George St. Pierre go to train with Greg Jackson. Jackson Wink MMA was one of the, probably the best MMA gym in the world, right? And now, when fighters go to train at Jackson Wink MMA, they very rarely improve. Quite often they regress. And now, if I see a fighter train at Jackson Wink MMA, it's a bit of a detriment. I kind of score against the fighter. I don't rate them as highly because I know they're probably not getting very good training in. There was an exodus at Jackson Wink. The gym kind of fell apart. And there are lots of examples like that. Glory MMA and Fitness is a very poor gym. Fortis MMA, very poor gym. Extreme Couture, very poor gym. There are a lot of gyms like that out there. And I think over the last 2 or 3 years, unfortunately, we have to start to bundle Team Alpha Male into there as well. At one point, Team Alpha Male was one of the best gyms in the world to train at. Look at all the high-level guys they've produced over the years. Chad Mendes, TJ Dillashaw, Uriah Faber, Cody Garbrandt, Danny Castillo. The list is endless, right? TJ Dillashaw, not sure if I said him. Chad Mendes, Joey Benavidez. High-level guys, man. Some of the best fighters in the world in the lighter weight classes. But like rats off a sinking ship, all those guys have left, and Team Alpha Male hasn't been the same since Dwayne Ludwig and TJ Dillashaw left. And I've noticed a trend at Team Alpha Male which is very alarming, where for the longest time Team Alpha Male was considered to be a predominantly grappling based gym, but now I'm noticing that a lot of the new guys coming out of Team Alpha Male have really bad takedown offense and really bad ground game, which is very weird because these were two things that kind of defined that golden age of Team Alpha Male fighter. You think about Joey Benavidez or Chad Mendes or Uriah Faber or TJ Dillashaw. Those guys are impossible to hold down. If you take one of those guys down, they immediately pop back up to their feet like a spring. Impossible to hold down. But you don't see that from the next generation of Team Alpha Male fighter. You look at Andre Philly accepting being on the bottom against Bryce Mitchell when he could have done a lot more to work his way back up to his feet. And there's a few Chinese fighters training at Team Alpha Male. You've got Li Jingliang, Song Yadong, Suma Derji, and of course Yao Ninyan on the far left. What you notice about all these Chinese fighters is that the common denominator between all of them is their takedown offense isn't great. They're very weak off their back. Think about a guy like Li Jingliang. Look at what Neil Magny did to him on the ground. You look at a guy like Song Yadong. Look at what Cody Stamen was able to do to him on the ground. Look at what Marlon Vera did to him on the ground in round 3. Even Kyler Phillips took him down. What's very concerning is, Song Yadong is a very, very skilled striker, but he's been training at Team Alpha Male for 2 or 3 years now, and his takedown offense hasn't improved at all. He's still very easy to take down, still very easy to hold down. And a really interesting case study for Team Alpha Male is a guy you may remember that trained at Team Alpha Male a few years ago. His name was Teruto Ishihara. He was a Japanese fighter that trained at Team Alpha Male for a good few years. Now, Ishihara was this really exciting striker, this long, lean, lanky, skinny dude with a similar body type to what we described about with Stefan Struve earlier on in the video. Teruto Ishihara was a very, very dangerous striker, but he'd trained at Team Alpha Male for a long time, and throughout his entire time there, his big weakness was his takedown offense and ground game. And I'll never forget, the UFC matched him up against Gray Maynard, one of those classic fights where they would throw, a legend of the sport, an aging veteran to the wolves, right? Gray Maynard was like 40 years old, 39, 40 years old. And they were throwing him in there against this young, hungry bull, Teruto Ishihara, hoping Ishihara would go out, knock this guy out dead. They'd be able to release Maynard from his contract and build a new star off Maynard's name. I think Ishihara was like a 1.10 minus 1,000 favourite or something over Gray Maynard. What happened? Maynard came out, took the guy down, wet blanketed him for 3 rounds, won an easy decision. And so my point being, I think Ishihara might actually have got released straight after that fight. But my point being, we've seen a lot of Asian fighters go to Team Alpha Male over the last sort of 3 or 4 years. None of them have improved at all, not even a little bit. Song Yadong's still as bad on the ground as he was when he first went to Alpha Male 2-3 years ago. And so when we're talking about risk factors to this bet, the only risk factor is, will Yan's takedown offense and ground game look better than it has in the past? If the answer is no, Esparza will dominate this fight. If the answer is yes, Esparza will struggle. So the question then becomes, what's the probability that Yan will have improved her takedown offense and ground game to the point where she can cause Esparza trouble? Well, not that high. We saw her fight back in November against Claudia Gadelha. This fight was only 6 months ago, and again, she looked very bad on the ground in her fight against Gadelha. Very bad takedown offense, weak off her back. How much could she have improved in 6 months? At a decent gym, maybe a reasonable amount. At Team Alpha Male, probably not that much. So all I say when it comes to gambling, at the end of the day, making money betting on MMA is all about trying to make the best decision possible with the information you've got available. Carla Esparza is a strong wrestler. She's a persistent grappler, relatively heavy from top position. Zhao and Yan, no takedown offense, no ground game. Gotta bet Esparza all day, no brainer, easiest bet on the card. You'd have to be an absolute dum-dum not to bet Esparza here. And I just want to also just bring up the size point that I actually forgot to cover. I probably should have covered this earlier on. But we always talk about how size matters in MMA. We've got weight classes for a reason, right? Size is a big deal in MMA. And Esparza is obviously very undersized at 5'1" with a 63-inch reach. She's one of the smallest strawweights in the division. But in Carla Esparza's case, it actually is a strength. It's a positive thing. Let me explain. We spoke about Esparza's size as being much smaller than most girls in the division. So how does that usually cause you trouble? Well, it usually causes you trouble because your opponent is almost always going to have a size and reach advantage over you. But that isn't that big of a deal against Esparza because Esparza doesn't fight in a range where you can use that reach advantage. Remember what we've spoken already throughout this breakdown of Esparza liking to fight in this range where she's either all the way out of a range where she can be hit or all the way in. I better get rid of this in case this video gets flagged for copyright by YouTube. They're a little bit aggressive with the copyright algorithm. But remember what we said, Esparza fights all the way out of her opponent's range or all the way in on blitzing attacks or takedown attempts. So it doesn't matter if you have a reach advantage over Esparza because she doesn't fight in the range where she lets you use that reach advantage. And then when Esparza's size becomes an advantage for her is because she has that lower center of gravity. So remember earlier on, like, we were talking about the Norma Dumont versus Felicia Spencer fight where we were saying it would be very difficult for Felicia Spencer to take Norma Dumont down because Norma Dumont has got that really thick, solid base. And so it's going to be difficult for Spencer to shoot in and upset Dumont's balance because of how stiff and rigid and upright Spencer is. Esparza's size works in her favour because with this lower centre of gravity, it makes it easier for her to shoot in deep and low on her opponent's hips. Remember earlier on we were saying if you want to demolish a skyscraper, the best way to do it is attacking the base. It's exactly the same with wrestling. You want to take someone like Yan down, attack the base, attack the legs. And so in this instance, even though Yan is a lot bigger than Esparza, it could actually work against her because Esparza is going to be able to get in much deeper on her legs because of that lower centre of gravity. And of course, this is why you see guys like Cody Staman's a very strong wrestler, short, small, compact frame, lower base. All the Team Alpha Male guys, short, compact base. We're going to be moving on talking about another one now, Cody Garbrandt, short, compact base. Anyway, let's get into the next one. Let's get into it. Let's see what we've got. Let's go. What's up, Gucci, mate? What's up, Gucci, dude? Boys, little shameless plug as well. If any of you boys, Gucci just reminded me, I know Gucci's very, very big on football. If any of you guys like box breaks, we're going to be doing a Premier League box break next Friday for the Champions League final. We're doing it the night before the Champions League final. So if any of you like football, Champions League, these boxes are absolute stacks. That's stacked. Go watch some unboxing videos on YouTube. They're sick. If you like football / soccer, wherever the fuck you call it in your country, check out some unboxing videos on YouTube. And if you want to get involved, come to the site and buy a pack, because I can show you right now, actually. Oh, boys, we have got fucking trading cards coming out of my goddamn ears. I don't know if you can see over there. Yo, I'm getting some cards ready for grading. I don't even know if you can see. See there? Where, like there? See, I've got my bottle of Windex, and there is a stack of UFC Prism cards. I'm just prepping them for grading. Windex, pro tip, great way to clean your cards up. And then, boys, we're fucking balls deep in trading cards. So we got 2 boxes of UFC Prism with us right now. Boom! Love these cards. I actually got 2 more upstairs, which I'm keeping for myself. But we'll be cracking these open very, very soon. 2 boxes of UFC Prism. So many trading cards to hand. And then also Premier League. Boom. 2 boxes of these as well. 1 box was already sold. So if you want to get in on the other box, get involved, boys. There is some fire in here. I'm just hoping that we pull one of those Kaboom cards, because they are sick. Yeah, so if you like Premier League, boys, get involved. Shameless plug. Get involved, man. The more the merrier. The more people we get buying packs, the more fun the stream's going to be. And I absolutely love opening some cool shit. So get involved, boys. Anyway. Ooh, interesting. We got some people sharing some football bets. Hamilcar Barkas like Chelsea plus 0.5. Not a bad bet. It probably will be a tight game, right? Champions League finals usually pretty tight. You know. Heine, Chelsea, likes the Chelsea handicap as well. Alright, boys, let's catch up on the comments. What's up, Gucci, mate? What's up, JB? What's up, dude? Yeah, shout out to JB. JB bought a pack yesterday. I made a big mistake. I thought people would love football cards. Apparently not. But I am gonna personally start collecting them myself. I want to pick up one of my goals. I want to get a couple of Kylian Mbappe PSA 10 rookie cards by the end of this year. So he's top of my shopping list, and hopefully I can grab them. Just going through the comments here. Glize is saying if they want Chinese champs, they need to arrange events in China so that the athletes in question can get on them special supplements with the assistance of the CCP. Alright, what about the YouTubes? Timothy Thompson saying Yancy Medeiros is going to lose. I'm going to go research that fight after this live stream, man. Going to go check that out. I do actually lean Yancy in that fight, so it's interesting how you said Yancy's going to lose. SK Movie Watcher is saying watch the UFC YouTube channel. They put out a video called The Rise of Yan Xiaonan. If you think she has power, watch how many shots she lands that her opponent eats, no problem. Yeah, well said, mate. Much more of a volume striker, right? Haven't seen that video, but she didn't look that dangerous to me in her past fights. It looks like everyone is saying Esparza via lay and pray. Comforting to know you guys agree with me, though. Hyena is saying it's going to be a challenge for Esparza to keep her down. See, I do disagree with you there, mate. I think if Esparza gets the takedown, I think she'll keep Yan down easily. I would just be worried that Yan's improved her takedown offense, but Yan off her back is real weak. Hey, what's up, Connor Lineup, dude? Good to see you, mate. Oh, thanks for the kind words, Kylo, mate. Appreciate that, man. Rami is asking about the UFC Prism video. So what happened, dude? When we live streamed the Prism video, the video was like over 2 hours long. So what I planned to do was edit the video down from like 2 hours to like 20-30 minutes, just going through like, because what happened was, when I do the box breaks, I'm really conscious that I want to take good care of everyone's cards. So after we've opened up each pack, then I spend time putting everything into sleeves and then segregating people's cards so they don't get mixed up. And because of that, after every pack opening, then there's like another 5-10 minutes before we open the next pack. And because of that, the video just ends up being crazy long, where I just talk bollocks while I'm putting cards into sleeves. So I thought, rather than putting that video out on YouTube, which is going to have like loads of shit in there which people aren't going to want to see, I'll like edit like a 20 to 30 minute video together, and then people can just watch the packs being opened without all the other stuff. So I was planning on doing that on Monday, but then, as you guys know, I've had pretty major technical problems with the website this week, which is also why this breakdown video is going out late, and which is why I've also got 3 fights to research this week. So basically a support agent working at my web host accidentally miscalculated the resources that my website needed from its server when they moved the website to a new server, which is supposed to give us better performance and better security. And due to that miscalculation, they caused a lot of technical issues. So I was supposed to put that Prism video out on Monday, but because I've spent most of this week fixing the website, I haven't had a chance to edit it yet. So I'll put it out next week, man. And it'll be like a little 20-30 minute video of the highlights. And I'm looking forward to doing it, going back and actually watching some of the pulls, because we did hit some big ones, man. Did hit some really big ones. Alright, let's get into it then, boys. Let's go. Let's get into the next one. So, let's now talk about the fight between Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt. So, you know what? Alright, okay, where should we start with this one? I always struggle to talk about fights where so like the Yan and Esparza fight is easy, because you can go, this is those fighters' strengths and weaknesses, this is that fighter's strengths and weaknesses, and because of one thing or another, this fighter's more likely to be able to exploit this fighter's weaknesses than this fighter being able to exploit that fighter's weaknesses, right? That's kind of how like this thing works. But when you get fights like Garbrandt against Font, it's tricky. It is tricky because it's a little bit like Oliveira and Chandler last week, where the weaknesses are a little bit intangible, I suppose. In terms of Garbrandt's weakness is his chin and durability, but then his chin usually isn't an issue if he fights smart. So then will he fight smart? It's tough to say. Anyway, let's get into the main event. Let's talk about the fight between Cody Garbrandt and Rob Font. So straight off the bat, I want to let you guys know I am struggling with this one. So I actually think this week's card is really good for betting. I love all the bets we've got this week. I think we've got 4 or 5 rock solid bets for this card. But this is one of those fights where I'm not sure. I just don't have a strong read on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you guys how I see it, but I don't know which way to lean on this one. This one's tough. This one is very tough. So I do think this fight is a great card. I do think this card is great for betting. That's why we've got a good number of bets on this card. But Rob Font was one of the first names that jumped out at me as a potential bet. So Font Garbrandt was one of the first fights I researched this week. And because of how good of a boxer Font is, I really expected to be betting Font this week. And it was one of those fights where after doing the research, I just didn't feel good about it. And yeah, this is a fight where I'm really struggling to call. This is a nice card because on every single one of the fights on this card, I have a strong lean either way. Garbrandt Font is one of those fights where I look at it and I go, you know what, I just don't know about that one. I'm not too sure. So if we look at the odds, both guys in that even money odds range, which is 1.91, which is minus 110 for an implied probability of 52%. So you guys know me. I love to bet in this odds range. If we look at the lab, we absolutely crush, right, when it comes to betting, placing bets in this odds range, right? Look at this. This is our performance on these even money bets, right? Over the last, just over a year, we crush. But every once in a while, man, those fights come along in that even money range, which is just very difficult to work out. And I do love these bets, because if you can just lean 60-40 one way or the other, you can find a strong position to put your money. But occasionally, you will run into a fight where you can't even lean 60-40. You've kind of just got to accept it's 50-50. And I do believe this is one of those fights here. So if we take a look at this one, where do we start? You know what? Forget about Font. Forget, how am I going to explain this one? So forget about Font for a minute. Forget about him. Let's just look at Cody Garbrandt, right? So on last week's card, we were talking about Tyson Nam, and we were saying the fight between Tyson Nam and Rogerio Bontorin is very difficult to predict, because we don't know what version of Tyson Nam we're going to get. No, sorry. The version of... I'll start again. Is the fight between Tyson Nam and Matt Schnell was difficult to predict, because we didn't know what version of Matt Schnell we were going to get, right? You look at it on one hand, and let's just bring up Matt Schnell's record, because it'll make it a lot clearer what I'm trying to explain. So we obviously bet match... no, we didn't. I can't get my words out. Jesus Christ. Sorry, guys. We bet on Tyson Nam to beat Matt Schnell, because Matt Schnell historically has been one of these guys that comes forward, gets in his opponent's face, puts a lot of pressure on them, and tries to bait them into, fighting in a phone booth and essentially playing rock'em sock'em robots. Schnell likes to stand right in front of his opponent, bet on his chin against theirs, and just literally throw down and just wing big power shots and look to take his opponent out. But the problem is, because that's been Schnell's style throughout his career, and he's had over 20 pro fights, and Schnell was one of these guys from Louisiana that trained alongside Dustin Poirier and was literally fighting every weekend when he was 17, 18 years old. These guys literally used to fight MMA every single weekend in Louisiana. Because of his style, how reckless he is, his brain is now mush. And so we bet on Tyson Nam to beat Matt Schnell, because Tyson Nam's one of the hardest hitters in the division. Tyson Nam's got crazy power. And we knew that with Matt Schnell's aggressive, reckless style, when he would come forward and attack Nam, and both guys would exchange, because Schnell is so chinny, he wouldn't be able to take Nam's power strikes. He'd probably get himself knocked out. But in his fight against Tyson Nam, that's not the version of Matt Schnell we got at all. Schnell, for the first time in his career, fought safe, fought smart, I can't get my words out. Jesus Christ, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what the fuck is going on with me. Matt Schnell couldn't get his word. God, it's been a rough week. I can't even fucking talk. It has been a rough week, boys. I'm not lying. It has been a hard week this week. I can't even fucking talk. It's been a hard week, boys. My brain is fried. Okay, start again. We knew that if Schnell turns up, fights like he had done throughout any of his other fights in his career, Tyson Nam would very likely knock him out. That's not the version of Matt Schnell we got against Tyson Nam. Against Tyson Nam, Schnell fought with a counter-striking style, fought smart, strategically, didn't put himself in any danger, didn't get sucked into any reckless exchanges, stayed on the outside, played the role of Matador, waited for Nam to come to him, and used Nam's forward pressure and aggression against him to pick him off as he came forward. And after that fight, we were we were licking our wounds, took a loss on Nam, and we were like, that's just the game we play, right? We bet on a version of Schnell we'd seen in his previous 20 fights, but that wasn't the version of him we got against Nam. And we theorized this was because he'd switched camps, right? Prior to his fight against Tyson Nam, he was kind of gym hopping. He was at ATT for a bit. He went to train at Extreme Couture for a bit. but he didn't really have a base. He was traveling round. And then in between the Alexandre Pantoja and Tyson Nam fight, there was a 2-year gap where he moved to Texas to go train at Fortis MMA. So we were saying, you know what? He's probably realised after a really bad knockout loss against Alexandre Pantoja that his style is unsustainable, and he's gone now to train at Fortis MMA with a different set of coaches, and he's now developed a new style where he uses his striking in a more technical way, in a safer way, to put defense first and, you know, use his superior technique to counter strike. So then when we were looking at the Bontorin fight, we were going, okay, the most weight you should put on any performance is a fighter's last fight, because we know fighters are on continuous journeys of self-improvement. They're always working to improve their weaknesses, because ultimately to reach the highest level of anything in life, you've got to be good at learning from your mistakes. So fighters are very aware of their weaknesses, and the best fighters are very good at working on them and improving them. So after the Tyson Nam fight, we look at it and we go, you know, Schnell's biggest weakness is that he's reckless, he's chinny. You know, he just gets baited into too many crazy wars, which his chin can't handle. But it looks like he's turned a corner, because Nam's one of the hardest hitters in the division, and he didn't get near Schnell for 3 rounds. It was a masterclass in counter-striking. And you've got to put a lot of weight on that, because, you know, that's very likely the version of Nam we were going to get. The version of Schnell we were going to get against Bontorin. But then you look at it and you go, but that's just one night. That's just one performance. And for Schnell's previous 20 fights, he's fought like a fucking crazy person and tried to bait all his opponents into playing Rock'em Sock'em Robot. So what do? What version of Schnell do we get? And that's what made betting that Bontorin fight very difficult. And as it happens, we got a little bit of both from Schnell. Early on, you know, he fought quite safe, quite technical, quite tactical. But then as the fight wore on, he got more and more and more reckless, to the point where he just started getting into these crazy exchanges, and Bontorin ended up wobbling him a couple of times and winning the decision. And old habits die hard. That was a really long-winded way of me saying old habits die hard. And guys like Schnell and guys like Cody Garbrandt, they can work on their weaknesses as much as they want. But if the instinct is in them to behave in a certain way, when they get tired, when they get hurt, when the adrenaline is running, and they go into autopilot, it's not always as easy to control their emotions and stick to the game plan. So one of the reasons why I did lean towards Schnell to beat Bontorin, I leaned towards Schnell to beat Bontorin last week. And the reason why I leaned towards Schnell was because of how good he looked against Nam. But we didn't bet Schnell. And one of the reasons why we didn't bet Schnell was because there was one notable difference between when he fought Nam and when he fought Bontorin. And that was the presence of a live audience. When he fought Tyson Nam, he fought him in the Apex Center in an empty arena behind closed doors. And so it's more like a training environment, right? You can't hear the fans. All you can do is hear your coaches and, you know, your opponent's coaches. And it's more like a sparring match. You know, you don't have all the emotion and the adrenaline of fighting in front of fans, where every time you land a punch, 15, 20,000 people go crazy. And so it's a lot easier to stay composed, stick to a game plan, and be disciplined in that kind of environment. A lot harder to keep your composure, stick to a game plan, and fight smart in a crazy environment like we saw at UFC 262, with fans in the arena who go crazy over any little exchange. And so what's very interesting here is perhaps we read this situation completely wrong. Perhaps the question was not what version of Schnell will we get against Bontorin. Perhaps the question we should have asked was, did Schnell only fight like that because he didn't have the emotion of fighting in a live arena in front of fans, and it was a lot easier for him to fight smart and stick to a game plan in essentially which was a training environment or a sparring environment? Is that the reason why Nam had this completely anomalous performance against... is that the reason why Schnell had this anomalous performance against Nam and cost us money? because the fight against Pantoja was in front of a live audience back in 2019. Against Bontarin, he fought like a madman in front of a live audience. Was the key detail we missed out on, the fact that this fight was behind closed doors. And so we're talking a lot about the Bontarin and Schnell fight, which may not seem that relevant to you, but it's very relevant because it helps paint a picture for why I lean towards Cody Garbrandt here. Because if we look at Cody Garbrandt, he is an elite as elite of a fighter as it gets. No one has outclassed Cody Garbrandt. No one has I can't get my fucking names out. I'm very sorry, boys. Very, very sorry for my shitty breakdown here. This is terrible. It's the worst fucking breakdown I've ever done. But I've had a rough week and my brain's frazzled, to be quite honest with you. I'm just struggling to get my words out. I'll be better for the next event. I'll be better. I just had a lot of challenges, a lot of stress this week to deal with. I'll be a lot better next week. But trust me, for all the stress I've gone through, I've still done my homework on all these fights, and you best believe all our bets this week are solid as fuck, and we're going to completely annihilate the bookies tomorrow and punch Denise Coates very, very hard in the vag once again, because May has been a huge month. We're up 10 units in live betting, and we're going to go so hard again tomorrow, boys. So just because my brain's frazzled, I'm a bit stressed out, do not think it's having any impact on my work. It isn't, I promise you that. We're back on track. Cody Garbrandt is an elite fighter. You want to talk about elite, it doesn't get any better than Cody Garbrandt. When we talk about what makes an elite fighter is someone who is good at everything with no weaknesses. And, you know, Garbrandt embodies that in many ways. Very strong wrestler, incredible takedown defense, impossible to hold down, phenomenal gas tank. Beautiful striking, amazing footwork, brilliant head movement, throws a wide range of strikes, tremendous ability to read his opponent. We were talking earlier on about how good Justin Tafa is at reading his opponents. You want to talk about a guy that's good at reading his opponents. Garbrandt read the unreadable guy. It was Dominic Cruz. Who has read Dominic Cruz? Garbrandt worked him out. Diaz couldn't, you know... You look at a guy like Dominic Cruz. Cruz couldn't get near Garbrandt. Garbrandt is as good as it gets. But of course, his one weakness is very similar to Matt Schnell's. And that's why we've been talking a lot about Matt Schnell. His one weakness is that he loves a scrap. He won't back down from a fight. If you ding him and you hurt him, he won't take a backward step. He will stand his ground, plant his feet, and fire back. And he will accept his own fate. Whatever will be, will be. And this is very, very strange because it was an incredibly disciplined performance against Dominic Cruz. There was bad blood between him and Cruz going into the fight. He hated Cruz. Cruz hated him. And it's important that I point this out because a lot of people are saying, you know, Garbrandt got sucked into these reckless exchanges against Dillashaw because he was fighting angry. But I don't buy into that because... there was a lot of bad blood going into the Cruz fight. You know, Cruz has got a long running, you know, rivalry with Team Alpha Male. And Garbrandt was definitely representing Team Alpha Male as a team and a gym and a group of friends when he fought TJ Dillashaw, but maybe more so than Dominic Cruz. You know, TJ Dillashaw still stayed friends with a lot of guys at Team Alpha Male. Cruz ain't friends with nobody at Team Alpha Male. They all fucking hate him. So the same pressure that Garbrandt had going into the Dillashaw fight, he also had going into the Cruz fight. For many years, it was Cruz versus Team Alpha Male. He was the Team Alpha Male boogeyman. And of course, we've seen him get into these reckless exchanges against Dillashaw, but then not Cruz. But he didn't have any bad blood with Munoz. You know, they trained together. Munoz is a very respectful guy. There was no bad blood at all. And yet again, Garbrandt fell into that trap of getting dinged. And then after getting hurt, instead of trying to recover, he got even more reckless and eventually, you know, got himself knocked out. If you go watch that first round against Munoz, it's absolute chaos. Garbrandt gets dropped off what he says is a headbutt, but recovers immediately. He's absolutely fine. Gets back up to his feet, lands a decent shot on Munoz to hurt him. Munoz backs up, and then Garbrandt literally just comes forward windmilling. just uncorking hook after hook after hook after hook after hook, and won't take a backward step. And Munoz is just shelled up behind the high boxing guard, essentially waiting for Garbrandt to burn himself out. Garbrandt didn't land anything. If you go back and watch that exchange, basically every punch that Garbrandt throws lands on the hands, the arms, the gloves of Munoz. He deflects everything behind this high boxing guard, and then just fires back with a counter and knocks Garbrandt out. And it was a completely needless situation for Garbrandt to put himself in. It wasn't necessary. It was pointless. Could have been avoided. He got dropped off a headbutt. He popped back up fine. Wasn't like Munoz was looking to take him out or anything. It was Garbrandt that put himself in that position to be finished. It's like what Darren Till said. So this is a fucking weird one, because then you go on and watch him against Rafael Assunção. Now, I know Assunção doesn't have any power in his hands. I know he's not a particularly dangerous striker. But Assunção is a top bantamweight. You know, he's been a top 5 guy for as long as I can remember. And Cody was like a ghost in there. For 10 minutes, Assunção couldn't get near Cody. That performance from Cody was very reminiscent of his performance against Dominic Cruz, where he put defense first and used his ability to read his opponent, to chip away at them, and just use superior technique to pick them apart. So that's interesting, right? Because in his recent fights against Pedro Munoz, TJ Dillashaw, he's fought like a madman, and it's been easy for Dillashaw and Munoz to get him off his game plan very, very easily. But then it was an incredibly disciplined performance against Rafael Assunção. Didn't put a foot wrong. Very strategic, very smart, very safe. So you're probably wondering earlier on, why is this crazy guy talking more about Matt Schnell and Rogerio Bontorin than about Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt? And it's because I think we've seen a trend emerge over the last year. I think there are some fighters that perform better in front of fans. Anthony Smith, probably a great example of this. You look at Anthony Smith at his fights on Fight Island and in the Apex Center against Alexander Rakic, Devin Clark, Glover Teixeira. He looked a shadow of himself. He looked shot. He looked about he was 50 years old. Looked terrible. But then you look at him against Jim Crute. Sharp, fast, explosive, popping his shots. He moved well. Smith looked like a different fighter. When he walked to the octagon, he was singing. He was dancing, he was smiling, he was relaxed, he was feeding off the energy of the crowd. And you hear these stories about these guys that perform very well in the gym, but then can't turn it on fight night. Just mentally, they can't get where they need to be to replicate the level of skills they demonstrate in training. And you see these other guys that are spoken about as being really average in training, but then on fight night, they're unstoppable because they can switch it on when the lights are shining and the cameras are rolling. And so Anthony Smith looks like a guy that feeds off the energy of the crowd and is at his best. Guys like Garbrandt and Schnell, possibly the other way. Garbrandt and Schnell possibly feed off the crowd, but in a more damaging way, in a more harmful way, where they feel like they need to please the crowd and entertain the crowd, and the chaos and the adrenaline of fighting in front of an arena packed full of people that are celebrating every little piece of success you have makes it harder for them to concentrate on the game plan and stick to their strategy. Because it is a huge coincidence how, you know, Cody Garbrandt and Schnell are similar in many ways. Very high level guys, you know, very good everywhere. But their main weakness is that they're very reckless and they tend to get rocked, dropped, wobbled and knocked out a lot. They're kind of fragile. They both share the same weakness. And then when we've seen Schnell fighting in arenas in front of fans against Bontorin, Pantoja, anyone else, he's looked like a fucking reckless, crazy maniac. When he's fought behind closed doors in essentially a TV studio, he's put in a real smart, disciplined performance to beat a guy that was one of the worst stylistic opponents for him in the division. And we may have seen something with Cody very similar, where he fought like a fucking crazy person in front of fans, and then by some coincidence put in an incredibly disciplined performance against Assunção. So is there a trend there? I don't know. What is interesting is this weekend's event is taking place behind closed doors at the Apex Center. So the question for this fight is very similar to the question we asked last week with Schnell and Bonterin. What version of Cody are we going to get? Because if the version of Cody the Foot, Rafael Assunção, or Dominic Cruz shows up, I think he gives Rob Font absolute hell. If the version of Cody Garbrandt the Foot, Pedro Munoz shows up, or TJ Dillashaw, I think he's in a lot of trouble. And don't forget, the reason why Cody Garbrandt got himself knocked out against Dillashaw is because he knocked Dillashaw down at the end of the first round of this fight and almost finished Dillashaw. And Dillashaw was saved by the belt, and then Garbrandt came out super aggressive in round 1, got himself knocked out. So there's a lot going on here with this matchup, and we haven't even got into how these guys match up from a stylistic point of view, so I'm sorry to babble on about this, but my head's a bit fuzzy. There's a lot to unpack. So yeah, the question is, what version of Garbrandt do we get? And when we talk about how these guys match up from a stylistic point of view, it's kind of difficult, right? Because what version of Garbrandt are we talking about? Are we breaking this fight down based on the version of Garbrandt that fought Assunção, or the version of Garbrandt that fought Pedro Munoz? Because the information I give you will be very, very different depending on which version of him we're talking about. That's what makes this very difficult. Let's talk about Rob Font's strengths and weaknesses, and then we can bring all this full circle and put this fight back together and make sense of it. So Rob Font is a very, very good boxer. Fights very long. 5'8", 71.5-inch reach. Cody Garbrandt, 5'8", and he's got a real bad case of T-Rex arms. He gives up a reach advantage to almost everyone in the division. Very, very short reach at only 65.5 inches. That means Rob Font has got a giant 6-inch reach advantage. And to be fair to Font, he knows how to use it. He really does know how to use it. He's got a brilliant jab. Fights very long. Big concern for me here, though, is Cody Garbrandt has got tremendous footwork, tremendous head movement, and he really does do a good job of reading his opponents and seeing the shots come in when he's focused on fighting smart. When he's focused on playing rock'em sock'em robots and brawling like a crazy person, of course he doesn't see the shots coming. He just fucking closes his eyes and wings bombs. But when Garbrandt's actually focused on counter-striking and defending himself, he's like a ghost. He's very, very difficult to land on. One of Rob Font's weaknesses, one of the reasons why he fights so long, is because he stands very, very heavy on his lead leg. So because he stands heavy on his lead leg, he can really extend that jab, which makes the jab one of his best weapons. And he can really sit, down quite hard on his straight right and cover a lot of distance with it. But the problem with Rob Font standing heavy on his lead leg is that he's obviously very, very susceptible to leg kicks. And if you go back and watch Cody Garbrandt's fight against Rafael Assunção, he came in with a very leg kick heavy game plan, really hammered the lead leg of Rafael Assunção and inflicted a lot of damage on Assunção. That'll be a big weapon that Cody can use to rack up points without putting himself in too much danger, without having to get into that boxing range. Now, of course, the best counter to a leg kick is a punch in the face. We know this. But Garbrandt does set up his leg kicks very nicely. Font does stand very heavy on his lead leg. That's one thing Garbrandt can have a lot of success with here. So then how do these guys match up from a boxing point of view? Well, what's real interesting about this fight is we've talked a lot about how kind of fragile Cody Garbrandt is. And how he's a little bit chinny, right? I'm not completely convinced that Rob Font is that tough, to be honest with you. We've spoken this week about leaning towards Bill Algeo because of how much tougher he is than Ricardo Ramos. And we've also spoken about Felicia Spencer not being as skilled as Norma Dumont, but a lot tougher. And, toughness, scrappiness, being game, loving the fight is a big part. It's a big intangible. What's very interesting about this is quite often being fragile goes hand in hand with not being that mentally tough for MMA and being a little bit inconsistent. But Cody's actually the opposite. He's a bit of a contradiction because he's very fragile and reckless and chinny, but he's tough as nails and game as hell. There's no quitting him. This guy will keep fighting until his last breath. I don't get the same vibes from Rob Font. I don't trust this guy as much as I trust Cody Garbrandt. In terms of, if this fight gets nasty, if this fight turns into a war, I have a lot more faith in Cody Garbrandt than I do in Rob Font. Don't have as much faith in Garbrandt's chin, but I have a lot more faith in his mentality. Because if you go back and watch some of Rob Font's fights, the Rafael Assunção fight is a big one for me. The Pedro Munoz fight is another big one for me. There were moments within those matchups where Font has doubt in his eyes. You can almost see the confidence seeping out of him. And the guys that he does well against, you know, the Ricky Simones, the Sergio Pettises, are the guys that don't really pose much of a threat to him standing. Sergio Pettis, obviously very, very small. You know, he's fought in the flyweight division in the UFC. He's a very, very small bantamweight. Never really had that much power in his hands. Pettis doesn't have many knockout wins on his record. Ricky Simone, very much a grappler, doesn't have much power in his hands. So Font can style on guys like Ricky Simone and Sergio Pettis. He can show us a tremendous jab, a tremendous ability to fight long, and, you know, really nice, good technical boxing. He can look great against those guys because there's not much risk coming back his way. Simone and Pettis don't really have many weapons they can use to hurt him bad. But when he starts to face a higher level of striker, he doesn't like to get hit. He really doesn't like to get hit. He's a little bit like Neil Magny. Neil Magny doesn't like to get hit, doesn't react well to getting hit, and no one likes to get hit. No one likes to get hit, man. No one likes to get hit. But if you're a lifeguard, you kind of got to get wet. You know what I'm saying? As a lifeguard, you might not like to jump into cold water and get wet. But if you got to do it, you can fucking deal with it. And it's perfectly normal for you. You just get on with it. It doesn't faze you, right? Same for fighters. No fighter's going to say they like to get hit. But it's something they deal with and they get used to. Font visibly does not like to get hit. He actually does this. I'll take my glass off. You go back, watch his fights. If ever you see Rob Font getting dinged, he'll go like this. And then if he gets hit again, he'll keep doing this, man. And it's like a it's like a tick. It's like a tick, as if to say, you just did something to me I didn't really like that much, and I've got to kind of touch my face to psych myself up to stay in this fight. It's kind of like, you know, when people get nervous, they touch their face. If you studied body language, you know, it's a big tell in poker. If you study body language, when someone's lying or not that confident, they start to touch their face like a nervous tick. That's what I see in Rob Font. And if you go back and watch his fight against Rafael Assunção in particular, you'll notice that as the fight wears on, he becomes less and less confident. And the lesser the confident he becomes, the less effective he becomes. The less snappy his jab becomes. The less he throws his jab. The less he sits down on that straight right. And so that's what makes this an interesting fucking fight. Because Rob Font is a great boxer. But I don't know if he's got the fucking jabronis to take on Garbrandt for 5 rounds. At some point, I reckon Cody's going to get to him. And the difference is, if Cody does fucking Hulk out and get in Font's face and play Rock'em Sock'em Robots, I don't think Font is going to be able to react how Pedro Munoz reacted or how TJ Dillashaw reacted. I don't think you're going to see Font stand his ground, fire back, and punish Cody for being chinny. I actually feel Cody might alpha him and big brother him a little bit and knock him the fuck out. And it's a weird fight, boys. It's a weird fight. It's a very, very weird fight. But that's why I lean Cody. Not with any amount of confidence, but I feel like Font is a bit of a glass cannon. Very, very good at being the hammer, not so good at being the nail. That's how I feel about Rob Font. Very, very good when he's fighting guys like Sergio Pettis and Ricky Simone that can't hurt him. I think he'll be a different guy if you get in his face, ref him up a bit, beat up his lead leg. hit him hard. I think it'll be a different fight. So I am going to lean towards Cody here, not with any amount of confidence though. You can never feel confident in a guy like Cody because he is chinny. He just is. There's no getting around it, you know. He's not durable. He gets dropped easily. Font's a good boxer. But I do lean Cody, which I didn't think would happen because I heavily lean towards Font. I've waffled way too much. I just want to say, just at the end of this, if you watched this long, I really appreciate it. I want to just say a big thank you to all my members, man. Earlier this week, I came out. Obviously, we put in... earlier this week, we put out an article and a Telegram message saying, boys, we got major technical problems with the website. I'm not going to be able to live stream this week, and the breakdown videos are going to be delayed. Like, the service you're going to get this week is not going to be as good as usual. We never have issues like this, right? We never, ever, ever have issues like this. I haven't had to deal with an issue like this in a really, really, really long time. This was a real black swan event for us. I woke up on Monday and the website was just completely fucked. Like, the website just didn't work. And I had to spend, you know, until late on Wednesday kind of papering over the cracks and getting the website back to a usable state. You guys have been amazing this week, man. Literally, like, you could have kicked off, you could have gone crazy, you could have put loads of pressure on me to get it finished, you could have put loads of pressure on me to get these breakdown videos out, and you could have put loads of pressure on me to continue doing live streams, and not a single one of you did, man. And like, I can't tell you how much that means to me. It's been a really, 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 really stressful week, boys. It's been tough, and you've made it a lot easier. If you hadn't made it as easy as you had, I probably would be in a fucking mental hospital or something. Now I would have had a fucking breakdown, because I wouldn't have been able to have juggled everything. It would have been too much. But you've been awesome, and I can't thank you guys enough. I really, really appreciate it. It means a lot. And you know, the good news about all this is the website isn't fixed yet. There are still issues with it, but because there's no UFC next week, I'll be able to spend all next week fixing it, so that by the next UFC event, I don't know who that is. Is it the pay-per-view? No, there's one more Fight Night card before the pay-per-view. So by the next event, Rosenstrike against Sakai, the website will be back up running 100%, no disruptions to services, and we'll get right back to live streaming the research for every single fight, and breakdown videos will be out a lot sooner. So can't thank you guys enough, man. It's meant a lot this week. It's been hard, and you guys have made it 10 times fucking easier. I really appreciate you. Really appreciate it if you've watched this long. So yeah, sorry to waffle on about that breakdown. It's one of those fights I wouldn't recommend betting, but my lean is Cody. But I mean, look, you know, whenever you've got a guy as fragile as Cody, you need to get him at dog odds, right? If you're betting him around that even money odds range, you're not getting a great risk to reward ratio, because ultimately it's a fist fight, and Garbrandt has shown he's not particularly capable of taking a hard punch to the face anymore. What's the probability of Font hitting him hard in a 25-minute period? Pretty high. So I don't really have much faith in Cody, but when he's at his best, he's really, really good. And when he's at his best, I don't think a guy like Rob Font can handle him. So I'm wondering if we get vintage Cody this weekend. You know, training with Mark Henry now. We'll see, man. We'll see. So anyway, nice one. Thanks everyone for watching this. What I will do, let's go through the comments. We'll go through some comments, see if there's any comments, and we'll wrap this bitch up. Nice one, Zach. Cheers, dude. Appreciate that, Zach, mate. Nice one, Zach, mate. Nice one, dude. Got some Bitcoin chat going on. Dober looks like he's going to short the old Bitcoin. Anything else for anything else? Nice one, Gucci, mate. Nice one, Matern. Nice one, Nick. Anything on Twitch? What have we got, man? Oh, Picciano. Yes, dude. Good question. So Picciano is asking what box break we're going to do for the McGregor-Poirier event. Mate, I've got some 2019 Topps Chrome on the way. So Topps Chrome is the year of the rookie. So I'll show you guys what I mean now. So packs will be going on sale after Friday. So as soon as the Premier League box breaks down on Friday, the Topps Chrome packs will go on sale. But I've got to show you guys something pretty cool. Stay there, boys. Don't go anywhere. Where are we? Just trying to find the link to the site. 2 seconds. I got something cool to show you. Well, if you care about trading cards, it's cool. If you don't care about trading cards, you don't give a flying fuck about what I'm about to show you. But anyway, can we find it? Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. All right. So we're going to be opening up Topps Chrome 2019 because it is the year of the rookie. If you look at the Topps Chrome set, there are so many good rookies in this set. It is unbelievable. So look at all these rookies, man. Come on, come on, come on. Their website loads slow. There's a lot of data on there. So look at the rookies you can get. High-rated rookies. Vicente Luque rookie. Macy Barber rookie. I know people don't rate Macy Barber that high, but she's 23 years old. She has a huge future in the sport. She's going to improve so much. She's got another 8 years before she hits her prime. Big rookie card. Alexander Rakic rookie card. Marina Rodriguez rookie card. Again, Montana De La Rosa, 25 years old. She's got 5 or 6 years before she hits her prime. Ion Cutelaba rookie. Peter Yan rookie. Islam Makhachev rookie. So I bought an Islam Makhachev SGC graded 9.5 2 weeks ago. Something like that for $200. I could show you now. Can I show you my purchase history? I might be able to show you my purchase history. As long as my address isn't revealed, because I don't trust you fuckers. Just kidding. But can I see my purchase history? I'll show you so it's all transparent and shit. Yeah, I could show you. I could show you. I could show you. Just take a look at this, right? I don't think there's any personal info here. So if we scroll down, you can see that here I paid $202 for Topps Chrome SGC rated 9.5 Islam Makhachev, $200. Cheapest one of these now available. Cheapest one available is now $1,500. So I have 7.5x my money in like 2 weeks, which is kind of fucking nuts, right? Kind of bonkers. So this set, Topps Chrome 2019, is absolutely flying up in value. So we're going to do a box break on this. And it's not listed here for some reason, but the Davison Figueiredo rookie is also in this set. I've seen it get pulled. So yeah, packs will be going on sale probably next week for that, dude. So thanks for asking, Picciano, mate. So yeah, the value of those rookie cards in that set are flying up, man. Nice one, MMA KM, mate. Thanks a lot, dude. Momo is saying Schnell tried to fight smart against Bonter and he was just getting countered bad. I'm not sure about that, mate. The reason why, if you go back and watch the fight, the reason why Schnell was getting countered bad is because Schnell was taking control of the centre of the octagon and leading the dance. If you look at the fight against Tyson Nam, Schnell stayed on the outside, waited for Nam to come to him, and when Nam came forward, he picked him off. If you go watch the fight against Bonterin, the reason why Schnell struggled so much is because he reverted back to his old style where he would come out, look to take control of the centre of the octagon, put pressure on his opponent and bait them into exchanges, which was why he was getting countered. He was leading the dance. Schnell's much more effective when he's countering rather than leading. So even though he was getting countered by Bonterin, he was getting countered because he was leading. If he would have just stayed on the outside, played the role of Matador, used Bonterin's aggression against him like he did to Nam, I think he would have done a lot better against Bonterin. What have we got? What have we got? What have we got, boys? Let's scroll back through. Yeah, you know what, SK Movie Watcher? We did pull that, David pulled that orange Kimeyev prism. It does look gem mint to me, mate. It looks fucking flawless, dude. Absolutely flawless. A lot of Champions League discussion. I can't wait for the Champions League, man. I really, do you know what? I'm not like a Chelsea fan or a Man City fan or anything like that, but I do really, really hope that Man City win, just because I feel like Pep deserves it. Do you know what I mean? Like, Pep is such a good dude, and it's the one trophy that has eluded him at Man City. I feel like Pep has done such amazing things at Man City. He's achieved so much at Man City. He's such a good guy. I feel like if Pep can just win the Champions League with Man City, he can walk away from Man City knowing that he did it all. He achieved everything he wanted to achieve. You know, he delivered a Champions League to Man City and their fans, and he can just sail off into the sunset knowing that he absolutely nailed it. Do you know what I mean? So, nothing against Chelsea, but I have a soft spot for Pep, and I'd love to see him win the Champions League, man. It would be amazing. Nice one, SK Movie Matcha, mate. Cheers, dude. Nice one, Joey, dude. Interesting. So Joey McBride is saying that Dominic Cruz is too pretty of a fighter. He isn't a guy who gets into dog fights, and there was no bad blood in the Munoz fight, and it still became a dog fight. Good point, dude. Because I don't think Font is a. I think Font is a pretty fighter as well. Which kind of point I was trying to make. I don't think Font. I think Font's going to be able to throw down with Cody. I think he could get big brothered. So Joey Benavidez is saying he doesn't think it's the crowd that throws Cody off. He thinks it's more when he gets hit, he kind of the red mist comes down, and he kind of just loses his head. Nice one, Joey, mate. Cheers, dude. Cheers, Joey, mate. So yeah, I think that is gonna be it, boys. Yo, SK, it is nice not doing Bellator tonight. I gotta be honest. I do. Oh, nice one, Matern, mate. To be honest with you, I do. I did research some Bellator fights this week. Yo, Matern, I've been a busy boy, dude. I've been a busy boy, mate. I have been busy. Going to do a bit more shopping in a bit as well, I think. So yeah, Matern, you know earlier on in the week when you said, why didn't you just go buy those Scream Munch cards? Now you know why, dude. That fucking purchase history is a dark place to be, mate. It is dark. So, yeah, man, it's all good. It's all good, boys. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. Nice one, everyone. Love you all. And, yeah, I'll see you all soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great weekend. I hope you smash it tomorrow. And have a nice couple of weeks off, man. Chill out. Don't watch any MMA. Play some video games and stuff. And then we'll come back fresh for that Rosenstrike Sakai card. And hopefully give the punches... I can't even fucking trash talk Denise Coates anymore. Hopefully we can come back and have a good one, man. So, nice one, everyone. Take care. Love you all. And I'll see you all very, very, very soon. Take care, guys.